Chapter 545. I guarantee it's genuine. Nie Tian took out his fourth-rank alchemist badge and placed it in front of the red-robed elders. You're spouting nonsense. Lien Wenchu's expression froze for a moment before he reacted and shouted angrily, How old are you? How can you be a fourth-rank alchemist? You must have stolen this emblem. The other red-robed elders looked at Nie Tian. He was only 17 to 18 years old and nodded their heads. A 17-year-old fourth-rank alchemist, was that even possible? At least in their opinion, it was impossible. A fourth-rank alchemist needed to have at least a 40th level of spiritual energy. Even if Nie Tian had been cultivating his spiritual energy since he was born, it would still be impossible for him to achieve that. One had to know that even Gu Qiulong, who was known as the #1 spiritual energy genius, had only obtained his fourth-rank alchemist badge when he was 19 years old. So these red-robed elders subconsciously thought that Nie Tian was lying. Lien Wenchu, you're the one who's spouting nonsense. Without waiting for Nie Tian to refute, Gu Yi, who was standing at the side, exploded and said loudly, Nie Tian's fourth-rank alchemist badge was personally awarded by me. If you don't believe me, you can check his spiritual energy. As Gu Yi spoke, he tried to sense Nie Tian's spiritual energy. Then, his expression froze and he couldn't continue his sentence. When the others saw this, they didn't know what had happened and tried to sense Nie Tian's spiritual energy. Then, their expressions became the same as Gu Yi. They were petrified. Meng Fanchen used his divine sense to check, and his expressionless face revealed an unconcealable surprise. His pupils suddenly shrank and his gaze became incomparably hot. Suddenly, the whole place fell into a dead silence. The 6 red-robed elders and 1 white-robed elder stared at each other, unable to say a word for a long time. Elder Yi and Zhang Tingyin didn't know what had happened. They looked at Nie Tian with a puzzled expression, but they couldn't see anything. These elders could sense Nie Tian's spiritual force, but Elder Yi and Zhang Tingyin couldn't. Naturally, they were confused. A faint smile hung on Nie Tian's lip. He was enjoying the exaggerated expressions of the red-robed elders. Brother Nie, how did your spiritual power reach level 51? After a full 10 seconds, Gu Yi was the first to react. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva and asked in surprise. When Nie Tian left Heaven Luo City, his spiritual power was only around level 40. In just half a year, when he reappeared, it had actually reached level 50. This was too unbelievable. 51st, that meant that Nie Tian had the ability to refine 5th-stage spirit pills at this time, which meant that he was a 5th-stage alchemist. A 17-year-old 5th-tier alchemist. Oh my god, this is too shocking. Compared to Nie Tian, the other alchemists were simply living like dogs. Nie Tian smiled faintly and said, I had some fortuitous encounters in the chaotic abyss, so my mental energy increased a bit faster. Gulp. Gu Yi's throat trembled, his face was speechless. He shouted in his heart, My god, how is this a bit faster? It's 1,000,000 times faster. Generally speaking, talented alchemists, after their mental energy reached level 30, it was already very good to be able to increase 1 level in a year. Nie Tian's mental energy increased by 7 or 8 levels in half a year when it was above level 40. This was simply inhuman. If the other geniuses in Sumi Ling Capital knew about this, they would collectively take a piece of tofu and find a place where no one was around to kill themselves. After a long time, Meng Fanchen and the others' expressions finally relaxed. The way they looked at Nie Tian became much more relaxed. Nie Tian's talent was too monstrous, enough to make them forget about killing Ying Rui. Now do you believe that my Tier 4 alchemist badge is real? Nie Tian put away the badge and smiled, looking very calm and collected. Lien Wenchu calmed down and shouted, Even if you're a 4th-stage alchemist, it can't offset the fact that you killed another 4th-stage alchemist in public. Ying Rui had no enmity with you. Killing him in public is equivalent to provoking the Alchemist Guild. You deserve to die. Nie Tian nodded with a smile. His eyes flashed as he asked, "May I ask how I should address this master?" Lien Wenchu. Lien Wenchu's face was filled with arrogance. Even if Nie Tian's talent was monstrous, his current status was still far from being comparable to the red-clothed elder. "Master Lien," Nie Tian's lips twitched and he asked, "May I ask what is your relationship with Ing Rue?" "He is my disciple." Lien Wenchu was still full of arrogance. Ing Rue's talent as an alchemist was rare even in Su Mi Ling capital. He was very proud to have such a disciple. Master-disciple. Nie Tian frowned and sighed softly. "Master Lien, if I say that Ing Rue is from Ling Xian Tian Pavilion, can you escape responsibility?" Ling Xian Tian Pavilion. As soon as this name came out, everyone was stunned, their eyes flashed with coldness. Nie Tian intentionally glanced at Zhang Tingyin, but the latter's reaction was very cold, without the slightest bit of surprise. Ling Xian Tian Pavilion was a taboo in the Alchemist Guild, because a red-clothed elder had died in their hands and the murderer had yet to be found. A bunch of nonsense. Lien Wenchu immediately calmed down. His face and neck were flushed red with anger. If Ing Rue was an assassin from Ling Xian Tian Pavilion, as a teacher, even if he did not know, he would not be able to escape the blame of not teaching properly. Moreover, this matter was too big. Saying that a fourth-ranked alchemist was an assassin from Ling Xian Tian Pavilion was definitely the most explosive news. Once it was spread, the Alchemist Guild's reputation would be tarnished. Nie Tian City Lord, some words cannot be spoken carelessly. If you say something wrong, the price will be very heavy. Meng Fanchen finally spoke. There was not much anger on his face, but a faint pressure was released. Although it was not fatal, it made people feel uncomfortable. Rumor had it that Meng Fanchen valued the Alchemist Guild's reputation the most. Nie Tian had only casually mentioned it and he could not remain calm. Gu Yi's expression turned ugly. Nie Tian's words were too serious, even more serious than killing Ing Rue. "President Meng." Nie Tian raised his head and looked at Meng Fanchen. He did not avoid the latter's gaze and said in a serious tone, "Since I dare to say this, I must have evidence." "What evidence?" Meng Fanchen furrowed his brows. He could tell that Nie Tian was very smart, and his temperament was much more mature than ordinary youths. He was definitely not the kind of person who would speak without thinking. He couldn't help but take Nie Tian's words seriously. Nie Tian did not beat around the bush. He took out a name list and threw it to Meng Fanchen. "The people on this name list are all from Ling Xian Tian Pavilion." Meng Fanchen received the name list and quickly scanned through the names on it. His expression stiffened again. There were more than 40 people on the name list. Most of them were fourth-stage alchemists, and there were a few fifth-stage alchemists. All of them were yellow-robed or blue-robed elders of the Alchemist Guild. More importantly, there were some details recorded on the name list. It did not look like it was made up. "President?" The red-robed elders could not help but call out when they saw Meng Fanchen's strange expression. Meng Fanchen calmed himself down and passed the name list to the red-robed elders to read. His gaze landed on Nie Tian again and he asked in a deep voice, "Nie Tian City Lord, where did you get this name list from?" "From Diao Jingda's corpse," Nie Tian replied calmly. "What do you mean?" Meng Fanchen was shocked. Chapter 546. Diao Jingda was also a member of the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion. Nie Tian's voice wasn't loud, but every word that fell into the ears of everyone present was like a clap of thunder, deafening their ears and making their hearts tremble. A red-clothed elder of the Alchemist Association and an assassin from the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion, these two identities were polar opposites. If they were to be equated, it would definitely cause a huge uproar. Everyone was flabbergasted as they stared at Nie Tian in astonishment. Elder Yi was also stunned as he didn't know anything about this. He just didn't have a good impression of Diao Jingda, and since Diao Jingda had died in the chaotic abyss, he didn't pay any attention to him. He didn't even know that Diao Jingde had died in the hands of Nie Tian. The last thing he saw was Diao Jingde being held hostage by Nie Tian. However, Elder Yi felt that no matter how crazy Nie Tian was, he wouldn't dare to kill him. Unfortunately, Nie Tian really killed Diao Jingde. Nie Tian City Lord. After a long silence, Meng Fanchen regained his senses and stared at Nie Tian with his sharp eyes. His tone carried a hint of oppression as he said cold, "What you said earlier is not a small matter. If you're wrong, the price you'll have to pay will be unimaginable." Nie Tian was still as calm as usual as he said indifferently, "President Meng, I'm not a 3-year-old child who will be responsible for every word I say. Everything I said earlier is the truth." "Every word?" Suddenly, Lien Wenchu screamed and stood up. He pointed at Nie Tian and roared, "Stinking brat, you dare to slander the red-cloved elder of the Alchemist Association and say that everything you said is the truth? I think you're tired of living." Nie Tian frowned slightly as he glanced at Lien Wenchu and said cold, "Lien Wenchu, I'm talking to President Meng. Please don't bark and disturb my conversation." Barking, Nie Tian directly scolded the other party as a dog. However, Lien Wenchu was indeed shouting like a mad dog at this time. "Brat, you dare to scold me?" Lien Wenchu roared sharply, his fat face swollen with anger. "Master Lien, please sit down," Meng Fanchen said coldly with a hint of impatience on his face. Lien Wenchu glanced at Meng Fanchen and knew that the latter was truly enraged. He could only shrink his neck and stop yelling. Meng Fanchen took a deep breath. What Diao Jingde had just said was too important. Even though he had a calm temperament, he still needed some time to accept it. He continued, "City Lord Diao Jingde, I believe that you're a smart person. You wouldn't say something without reason. What evidence do you have to prove that Diao Jingde is related to the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion?" Just now, Nie Tian had displayed his monstrous talent in alchemy. Meng Fanchen's heart was already moved by his talent, and he even had the intention to turn Ying Rui's death into a small matter. However, Nie Tian had caused such a huge commotion. Not only did he expose more than 44th-tier alchemists, but Diao Jingde, who had already died in the Chaos Abyss, was also dragged into the matter. If Nie Tian couldn't produce conclusive evidence to prove what he said, he wouldn't be able to leave alive today. Nie Tian nodded slightly and said, "President Meng, the first evidence that I said that Diao Jingde is an assassin from the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion is in your hands. I found it on his corpse." "How do you prove it?" Meng Fanchen asked. "President Meng, since I've already said it, I won't hide it anymore. I killed Diao Jingde. His spatial ring is in my hands. You can check it," Nie Tian said as he took out a spatial ring and threw it to Meng Fanchen. Meng Fanchen caught the ring, but his pupils suddenly shrank. He said in shock, "You killed Diao Jingde?" When the others heard this news, they were shocked once again. The way they looked at Nie Tian became strange and complicated. There was even a trace of fear. "That's right." Nie Tian nodded. Looking at Meng Fanchen and the others' reactions, they didn't know about this. It seemed that after Mo Feng and the others escaped from the chaotic abyss, they didn't announce this matter. Maybe they thought that Nie Tian was already dead and didn't want to get involved. "Brother Nie, you can't talk nonsense about this." Gu Yi immediately couldn't sit still and stood up. Lien Wenchu smiled cold and said, "Master Gu, this kid personally admitted that he killed Master Diao. How can it be nonsense?" "Personally admitted your ass." Gu Yi didn't have a good impression of Lien Wenchu and directly scolded him. "You!" Lien Wenchu's old face turned red and his muscles trembled. "Pa!" Meng Fanchen was angry. His eyes darkened, and he slammed his hand on the table and roared, "Silence!" The red-cloved elders were shocked and didn't dare to quarrel anymore. Meng Fanchen's face was gloomy. He didn't expect that Nie Tian actually dared to admit to killing a red-clothed elder in front of all the higher-ups of the Alchemist Guild. Could it be that in his eyes the Alchemist Guild was so weak? Or did he think that the red-cloved elder wasn't a big deal, and that he could kill him just like that? Nye Tian City Lord, I will ask you again. Did you really kill Diao Zhengde? Meng Fanshen's eyes were cold, and a strong oppressive force enveloped Nye Tian. Nye Tian's eyes trembled. He didn't expect Meng Fanshen to be so strong. He was definitely a spirit wheel realm expert, and his restrained aura was almost on par with the Dan Wu Hall's Zhang Tingyin. Yes, I really killed Diao Zhengde. Nye Tian nodded and didn't try to avoid Meng Fanshen's eyes. He said, but I only killed him after I was sure that he was an assassin from the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion. Meng Fanshen's face instantly turned gloomy. A cold aura was suddenly released from his body, and the cold aura almost froze the surrounding space. Ice attribute. Nye Tian frowned again and was quite surprised. He didn't expect Meng Fanshen to be a rare ice attribute martial artist. It was really rare for an ice attribute spirit to become an alchemist. Nye Tian guessed that Meng Fanshen must have merged with an extremely rare cold flame. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to become an alchemist. As the cold aura was released, the formless ice energy froze the space. Nye Tian actually felt like he couldn't breathe. Old Meng! Elder Yi immediately stood up and shouted. Meng Fanshen's eyes froze for a moment. Then, the ice energy dissipated, and Nye Tian felt much better. He said in a deep voice, Nye Tian, do you know that even if Diao Zhengde was from the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion, it wasn't your turn to kill him? As long as he was still a red-cloved elder of the guild when he died, you will pay the price for his death. Nye Tianling frowned. He didn't expect Meng Fanshen to say something like this. Also, Meng Fanshen continued, don't you think it's ridiculous to prove that the red-cloved elder of the Alchemist Guild is an assassin from the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion with just your one-sided statement and a list of names? Yes. At this moment, Zhang Tingyin also stood up and shouted, Nye Tian, if you can't produce any other evidence, I will be the first to kill you. Chapter 547. Seeing that Meng Fanshen and Zhang Tingyin were enraged, Nye Tian narrowed his eyes. His expression turned solemn, but he didn't panic at all. He could understand why Meng Fanshen was so furious. A red-cloved elder was not only related to the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion, but he was also killed. What was even more ridiculous was that the murderer admitted it openly in front of him. Wasn't this a slap to his face? If what Nye Tian said was true, then the red-robed elder and the 40-plus yellow-robed and blue-robed elders of the Alchemist Guild were all assassins of the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion, and Meng Fanshen, the president, had no idea about it at all. How much of a failure was he as the president? All these factors combined to make Meng Fanshen so furious. As for Zhang Tingyin, he was just adding fuel to the fire. Nye Tian even suspected that this Dan Wu Hall master was related to the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion. Tai Shan and Tai He tried to kill Nye Tian out of nowhere. Nye Tian didn't think of anyone else, but Zhang Tingyin must be the mastermind behind this. However, he didn't have any evidence right now. Everything was just a guess in his heart, so he obviously couldn't say it out loud. You guys want evidence, right? I'll give you evidence. Nye Tianling smiled indifferently and 2 tokens appeared in his hand. He threw them to Meng Fanshen and said, I'm sure you can recognize these 2 tokens with your eyesight. Meng Fanshen looked at the 2 badges in his hand. One was made of diamond while the other was made of violet gold. Both badges had a sickle engraved on them. He couldn't help but exclaim, these are the Heavenly Ascension Pavilion's death badges. Yes. Nye Tian nodded and said loudly, one is a diamond-grade Death God token, and the other is a purple-gold-grade Death God token. Meng Fanshen frowned slightly as if he wasn't sure. He passed the 2 tokens to an elder in red and said, Elder Lin, take a look. The Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion's Death God token was divided into 7 grades from lowest to highest. Black iron, bronze, silver, gold, purple gold, diamond, and black emperor. Of the 2 Death God tokens Nye Tian took out, one was diamond rank, and the other was purple gold rank. They were both high-ranked death god tokens of the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion, especially the diamond-ranked death god token. There were probably only a few of them in the entire Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion, and only Vice Pavilion Masters and above had them. Nie Tian glanced at Zhang Tingyin again, and the latter also revealed a shocked expression. The elder surnamed Lin carefully examined the token and revealed a shocked expression. He nodded slightly and said, "The token is real. This violet gold death token does have the aura of Grandmaster Diao's soul sense on it." Well, once Elder Lin finished his words, everyone else was terrified. They did not doubt Elder Lin's words at all. Could it be that Diao Jingde was really from the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion? Nie Tian looked at Elder Lin and was surprised. This person was actually able to sense Diao Jingde's soul sense from the Death God token. He was really not simple. The Death God token had been away from Diao Jingde for half a year, and the soul sense in it was extremely weak. Even Meng Fanchen could not sense it, so how did this elder surnamed Lin do it? Surnamed Lin? Nie Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. He thought of something and felt relieved. This elder surnamed Lin should be from the Appraisal clan, the Lin clan. The Lin clan has a bloodline spirit, so even the weakest soul sense should be able to sense it. Previously at the auction, Nie Tian had already seen Lin Yifeng's ability. It seemed that this elder in front of him was also from the Lin clan. City Lord Nie Tian, where did you get these two identity medallions? Meng Fanchen's old face became even more gloomy. He had a faint premonition that what Nie Tian said might be true. Could it be that Diao Jingde was really from the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion? Was the Alchemists Guild's reputation really going to be ruined? Beads of sweat began to form on Meng Fanchen's broad forehead as he thought of this. Seeing Meng Fanchen's reaction, Nie Tian knew that the latter was starting to believe him, so he said directly, "I got the Diamond Death God token from the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion's Vice Pavilion Master, who is also the Vice City Lord of Chaos City, Wan Qirong. The Purple Gold Death God token was obtained from Diao Jingde. The two of them have already admitted their identities. They are both from the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion." Meng Fanchen was stunned. He felt as if his head was going to explode. There was a rumor in the 3,000 small worlds that Chaos City was the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion's lair. Now that Nie Tian said that the Vice City Lord of Chaos City was also the Vice Pavilion Master of the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion, there was nothing strange about it. Nie Tian City Lord, when Diao Jingde admitted his identity, was there anyone else present? Meng Fanchen asked as if he had just woken up from a dream. Yes. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed and he said, "But those people are all dead." Actually, Elder Yi was also present at that time, but when Diao Jingde and Wan Qirong admitted their identities, he had already left. The only people who were still alive were the Mo family's outer elder, Mo Feng, the Qiu family's direct descendant, Qiu Xiaofeng, and Tawny. Unfortunately, the three of them could not testify for Nie Tian. "They are all dead?" Lian Wenchu let out a weird cry. He stood up again and shouted, "That is to say, what you said is only your side of the story and no one can prove it, right?" "Yes." Nie Tianling looked at him coldly and nodded slightly. Indeed, no one could prove what he said, because all the witnesses were either dead or members of the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion. "Lian Wenchu, what are you trying to say?" Gu Yi also stood up at this time and roared, "Even if no one can testify for Brother Nie, are these two Death God tokens not enough? Moreover, one of the tokens has Diao Jingde's aura, which was clearly used by him. This is enough to prove that he is a member of the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion." Gu Yi and Nie Tian had a deep friendship, so of course he would speak up for him at this time. "Humph." Lian Wenchu sneered and said, "So what if the Death God token is real? Maybe this kid is a member of the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion, casually using two tokens and a list of names to subvert our Alchemist Guild. As for Master Diao's soul sense aura on the Death God token, it's even simpler." He killed Master Diao, then extracted a wisp of Master Diao's soul sense and integrated it into the Death God token, using it to slander Master Diao. Lien Wenchu spoke resolutely and loudly. He looked so righteous that it made people want to vomit. Lien Wenchu, I didn't expect your alchemy skills to be so mediocre, but your ability to invert right and wrong is not small. Gu Yi pointed at Lien Wenchu's nose and said, almost scolding him. Lien Wenchu didn't show any weakness and wanted to refute, but he was interrupted by Meng Fanshen's roar. Enough! Meng Fanshen shouted angrily. His face was gloomy and terrifying. What's the difference between a dignified red-clothed elder of the Alchemist Guild and a shrew cursing on the street? Seeing that Meng Fanshen was really angry, Gu Yi and Lien Wenchu didn't dare to say anything more and could only sit down. Meng Fanshen's cold eyes stared at Nie Tian, his brows deeply knitted, not knowing what he was thinking. After a while, he finally said, Nie Tian City Lord, if there are only 2 tokens and no witness, this president will not believe you. This matter concerned the reputation of the Alchemist Guild. No matter how ridiculous Lien Wenchu's speculation was, Meng Fanshen had to side with him. Nie Tian's eyes darkened. He didn't expect Meng Fanshen to say that. Chapter 548. The door of the inner hall opened and a figure walked in. Old Man Yang. Nie Tian was stunned when he saw the person's face and called out his name. He really didn't expect that the person who suddenly appeared at this time would be Old Man Yang. Who are you? How did you get in? Zhang Tingyin suddenly stood up and roared crazily. This was the inner hall of the Alchemist Guild. It was impossible for ordinary people to enter. This person broke in without a sound. Could it be a ghost? Nie Tian also slightly frowned at this moment. When he entered the Alchemist Guild just now, the tight security shocked him. Although Old Man Yang was strong and had a spirit will stage cultivation, it was obviously far from enough to force his way into the Alchemist Guild. Then how did he get in? And looking at his expression, it seemed that he didn't encounter any resistance. Could it be that he had a high status that the guards of the Alchemist Guild didn't dare to do anything to him? You are. At this moment, the red-clothed elder Lin Yuan suddenly stood up and looked at Old Man Yang with a dumbfounded expression, as if he had seen a ghost. Meng Fanshen also felt something at this moment. He also stood up and opened his mouth, but no words came out. The other red-clothed elders looked at each other, not knowing what was going on. President Meng, can I testify for him? Old Man Yang walked to Nie Tian and spoke again. This time, his voice was different. It was no longer as old as before, but it was filled with a sense of righteousness and unyielding pride. This voice. Gu Yi was the first to react. The voice he heard was so familiar that he couldn't react for a moment. But in the next moment, he immediately remembered the owner of the voice. His expression instantly froze and he said dumbfoundedly, You are Big Brother Yang? Yang Kai. The other elders also reacted and shouted the same name at the same time. Their expressions also became dumbfounded. Yang Kai? Nie Tian was slightly stunned. This was Old Man Yang's name. Looking at the reaction of Meng Fanshen and Gu Yi, he really was a big shot. Who could it be to make Meng Fanshen so surprised? From the moment Nie Tian saw Old Man Yang, he knew that the latter's identity was extraordinary. But he didn't expect it to be so high, at least not weaker than Gu Yi and the others. Moreover, Gu Yi had even called him Big Brother Yang, as if the relationship between the two of them was not ordinary. Nie Tian really couldn't figure out who Elder Yang was. You really are Kai Yang? Meng Fanshen calmed down, but he couldn't stop his voice from trembling. You're still alive? Elder Yang's expression was calm. When he raised his head again, his appearance had also changed. It was as if he had suddenly become several decades younger. Not only did he no longer look old, but he even had an aggressive heroic spirit. Not only had Old Master Yang disguised his voice, but he had also disguised his appearance. It was no wonder that no one could recognize him. Brother Yang, it's really you. So you didn't die. That's great. Gu Yi shouted out in surprise, excitedly running over, his excited expression like a 6 or 7-year-old child. Brother, I've made you worry. Old Yang nodded with a trace of guilt in his expression. Old Gu, who exactly is Old Yang? Nie Tian couldn't help but ask Gu Yi via voice transmission. Hee. Gu Yi chuckled and said, he's the red-robed elder I told you about, the one who was killed by the Ling Xian Tian pavilion. A red-robed elder. Nie Tian was stunned. He was dumbfounded and couldn't speak for a long time. No wonder Old Yang could directly enter the inner hall of the Alchemist Guild. It turned out that he was a red-robed elder. The scene was dead silent for more than 10 seconds. It took Meng Fanchen and the others a long time to calm down. President Meng, I'll explain everything to you later. As for Diaojingde, I'm willing to testify that what Nie Tian City Lord said is true. Diaojingde is indeed a member of the Ling Xian Tian Pavilion, Yang Kai said calmly. Grandmaster Yang, you haven't been to the chaotic abyss. How can you testify for him? Lian Wenchu didn't give up and asked with a frown. Yang Kai glared at him cold and said, the night I was killed, Diaojingde was at the scene. The reason why the Ling Xian Tian Pavilion wanted to kill me was to make Diaojingde the next red-robed elder. Isn't this evidence enough? Lian Wenchu swallowed his saliva and didn't dare to speak again. Grandmaster Yang, since you didn't die, why didn't you come out? Why did you hide? Another red-robed elder stood up and asked. Yang Kai sighed deeply and said, the Ling Xian Tian Pavilion wanted to kill me because they wanted Diaojingde to become a red-robed elder. If I didn't die, then they would continue to hunt me down. If they couldn't kill me, then they would kill the other red-robed elders until Diaojingde became a red-robed elder. Only then would the Ling Xian Tian Pavilion stop. The Alchemist Guild is in the light, while the Ling Xian Tian Pavilion is in the dark. Moreover, the Ling Xian Tian Pavilion's strength isn't any weaker than the Alchemist Guild. If I didn't die, then more red-robed elders would die. Do you think I would dare to come out? Hearing Yang Kai's words, the red-robed elder didn't speak anymore. The other elders also fell silent. Since the Ling Xian Tian Pavilion could easily kill Yang Kai, then they could easily kill the other elders. If Yang Kai didn't die, then the Ling Xian Tian Pavilion wouldn't stop. Yang Kai didn't come out and abandoned everything so that no tragedy would happen again. Ling Xian Tian Pavilion. Meng Fanchen's face tensed up and his whole body trembled. He shouted the name word by word. The Alchemist Guild and you are irreconcilable enemies. Seeing Meng Fanchen's actions, Nie Tian finally breathed a sigh of relief. Nie Tian had to admit that Yang Kai came at the right time. Otherwise, even if Nie Tian broke the heavens, Meng Fanchen might not believe him. President Meng, since you believe that Diaojingde is from the Ling Xian Tian Pavilion, then I can leave. Nie Tian was thinking about Nie Yuro and the others. He also wanted to see Mo Rushi as soon as possible, so he didn't want to waste time here. Meng Fanchen's expression became slightly awkward. He said, Nie Tian City Lord, although you killed Diaojingde, you already knew that he was from the Ling Xian Tian Pavilion, so this president didn't pursue the matter. As for Ying Rui, he deserved to die. You helped the guild uncover such a big secret, so the guild naturally has to repay you. How do you intend to repay me? Nie Tian's mouth curled up into a faint smile. What he liked the most was taking advantage of others. Meng Fanchen was the president of the Alchemist Guild. Since he said he wanted to repay him, it wouldn't be too shabby. Meng Fanchen's expression relaxed a lot. He swept his eyes over the crowd and said, this president proposes to invite Nie Tian City Lord to serve as the Alchemist Guild's honorary red-robed elder. What does everyone think? This. Everyone was taken aback, and their faces were filled with shock. How old was Nie Tian? He was only 17 years old. Inviting a 17-year-old boy to be the Alchemist Guild's honorary red-robed elder was too outrageous. I agree. Gu Yi was the first to raise his hand in agreement. He secretly admired Meng Fanchen's approach. At this time, Nie Tian's spiritual energy had reached the 51st stage, making him a fifth-order alchemist. With this strength, he could at least become a yellow-robed elder of the guild. Meng Fanchen directly making him a red-robed elder was actually a way to win him over. With Nie Tian's talent, it was only a matter of time before he became a sixth-order alchemist, seventh-order alchemist, or even eighth-order alchemist. Meng Fanchen was an astute person. Of course, he wouldn't miss out on such a genius. Chapter 549. The Dan Heart Soul Stone was the treasure of the Alchemist Guild. Nie Tian had always wanted it. However, Meng Fanchen and the others were stunned as soon as he spoke. They thought that Nie Tian was being modest by not accepting the position of honorary red-robed elder. They didn't expect him to demand an even more ridiculous reward. Gu Yi snuck a glance at Nie Tian. He knew that with Nie Tian's personality, he would definitely not let go of such a great opportunity to take advantage of him. However, his request was a little too much, and he was sure that Meng Fanchen would not agree to it. Sure enough, Meng Fanchen hesitated. He stared at Nie Tian and wondered if he should agree to Nie Tian's request. The Dan Heart Soul Stone was the symbol of the Alchemist Guild. Obviously, it couldn't be seen by anyone. Even Meng Fanchen would need the approval of 4 red-robed elders if he wanted to see the Dan Heart Soul Stone. President Meng, since you're not willing, then forget it. As for the honorary red-robed elder position, I don't want it. I'm a free person and I don't like to be tied down. Nie Tian smiled and was about to leave. Nie Tian City Lord. Meng Fanchen called out to Nie Tian just as he was about to leave. Meng Fanchen's eyes flashed with determination. If you want to see the Dan Heart Soul Stone, then I'll agree to it. The other elders were stunned. They didn't expect Meng Fanchen to agree. Nie Tian smiled faintly and thought to himself, Meng Fanchen, it seems that you have some guts. When he rejected the position of honorary red-robed elder, he was hinting to Meng Fanchen that if he didn't let him see the Dan Heart Soul Stone, then he would have nothing to do with the Alchemist Guild. Meng Fanchen couldn't bear to see such a monstrous alchemist miss out on the Alchemist Guild. Therefore, he agreed to Nie Tian's request. Everyone, what do you think? Meng Fanchen looked at the others. It wasn't enough for him to agree alone. He needed the support of the other red-robed elders. I agree. Gu Yi was the first to express his opinion. I also agree. Kai Yang followed. I agrees too. Lin Yuan nodded in agreement. Seeing this situation, the others could only nod in tacit agreement. Even Lien Wenchu had no choice but to agree. All right. Without further ado, let's go take a look. Nie Tian was already impatient. He wished that he could immediately see the legendary Dan Heart Soul Stone. Nie Tian City Lord, Meng Fanchen said. About the honorary red-robed elder, Nie Tian chuckled and said, President Meng, a red-cloved elder is a red-cloved elder. Why do you need to add the word reputation? How about this, as long as you remove the word reputation, I will join the Alchemist Guild, how about it? Meng Fanchen's face stiffened. He was speechless. Nie Tian was too greedy. He was asking for a yard after giving him an inch. However, he had to seriously consider Nie Tian's suggestion. The Alchemist Guild had an unwritten rule. In order to become a red-cloved elder, one had to be at least a sixth-order alchemist. Nie Tian was at most a fifth-order alchemist. He was still far from a sixth-order alchemist. However, his potential was too terrifying. He was only 17 years old, but already had a fifth-order spiritual force. This was simply beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Therefore, Nie Tian would definitely become a sixth-order alchemist in the future. He just needed a little more time. President, you won't really agree to this little brat's request, right? Lien Wenchu saw Meng Fanchen's serious face and couldn't help but cry out. If Nie Tian became a red-cloved elder, He would be on equal footing with these old men. This was something Lien Wenchu couldn't accept. A red-cloved elder needs to be at least a sixth-order alchemist. His strength is not enough. Another elder said, "It's not enough for now. I can guarantee that Brother Nye will become a sixth-order alchemist within 3 years." Gui vowed. 3 years? He only has a fifth-order spiritual force. Give him another 10 years and he still won't be able to become a sixth-order alchemist. That elder retorted. Gui laughed in disdain. "Do you think Brother Nye is like you? Stupid as a pig." Gui you. That elder's face turned red. He was about to go crazy. "Stop arguing," Meng Fanchen said coldly. "I agree to let Nye Tian City Lord be a red-cloved elder. If anyone else has any objections, keep it to yourself." After that, Meng Fanchen didn't look at the other elders' shocked expressions. He said to Nye Tian City Lord, "Let's go take a look at the Dan Heart Soul Stone." Okay. Nye Tian knew that Meng Fanchen would agree to his request. He smiled lightly and looked at the other elders provocatively. Although Lien Wenchu and the others felt uncomfortable, they didn't dare to show it. Even they had to admit that Nye Tian's talent was too monstrous. Then, Zhang Tingyin and Elder Yi waited in the inner hall, while Meng Fanchen brought Nye Tian to the Dan Heart Pavilion. The Alchemist Guild was a 9-story building. Every floor was protected by a mechanism. After going through layers of mechanisms, Nye Tian and the others finally arrived at the Dan Heart Pavilion on the 9th floor. This was where the Dan Heart Soul Stone was stored. Nye Tian saw a complicated mechanism lock on the door of the Dan Heart Pavilion. It was protected by a sixth-order spiritual formation. Lin Yuan, Gui, Lien Wenchu, Lu Li, let's open the Dan Heart lock together. Meng Fanchen called out 4 names. He stepped forward, took out a white key and inserted it into the mechanism. The 4 red-clothed elders walked over and each of them took out a red key and inserted it into the mechanism. Click. The 5 of them turned it together. The mechanism made a crisp sound and the door of the Dan Heart Pavilion was opened. Nye Tian nodded. The Alchemist Guild protected the Dan Heart Soul Stone very well. The key in Meng Fanchen's hand was to open the main lock. Apart from that, there were 4 secondary locks. The 4 red-cloved elders had to turn the keys together to open the Dan Heart lock. The door of the Dan Heart Pavilion was opened. A dark tunnel appeared in front of them. Nye Tian City Lord, you only have 3 hours. Meng Fanchen nodded and said to Nye Tian. 3 hours was the most he could give. Okay. Nye Tian smiled and was ready to go in. Nye Tian City Lord. Meng Fanchen stopped him and said, "The Dan Heart Soul Stone is strange. Do not go within 300 feet of it. Otherwise, your psychic power will not be able to withstand the impact of spirit power. You may go mad." "Thank you for reminding me." Nye Tian frowned. He answered and walked in. As soon as he stepped into the tunnel, Nye Tian immediately felt an extremely strange aura rush into his body, causing him to feel an indescribable excitement, as if his soul was trembling along with it. Chapter 550. Nye Tian glanced at the passage in front of him. It was a full kilometer long. From this, it could be seen that the Alchemist Guild was indeed very big. Although he was still a kilometer away from the Dan Heart Soul Stone, Nye Tian already felt a very tyrannical spiritual force impact, causing his divine sense to become active. According to Gui, the Dan Heart Soul Stone was a strange stone passed down from ancient times. It was very strange and was condensed from the purest spiritual force. The main body of the Dan Heart Soul Stone was in the Alchemist Guild headquarters, while the 7 clones were in the Alchemist Guild branch, where the red-clothed elder was. The Dan Heart Soul Stone could stimulate a martial artist's spiritual force. Within 100 meters of the Soul Stone, a martial artist's spiritual force cultivation speed could be increased by 100 times. If it was the main body of the Soul Stone, it would increase the martial artist's spiritual force cultivation speed by thousands of times. The closer one was, the more active the spiritual force was, and the better the effect. However, the closer one was to the Dan Heart Soul Stone, the more spiritual force impact a martial artist had to withstand, and the more powerful the divine sense would be. If the divine sense couldn't withstand the spiritual force impact, it was very likely to collapse. If this was the case, the light would be chi deviation, and the heavy would be death on the spot. Just now, Meng Fanchen had warned Nie Tian not to go within 100 meters of the Dan Heart Soul Stone because he was afraid that he was young and frivolous. It would be a pity if such a monstrous alchemist's divine sense collapsed by the impact of the Dan Heart Soul Stone. Nie Tian walked forward step by step, and at the same time, he felt the spiritual force impact getting stronger and stronger. The agitation of the divine sense caused the yuan energy in his body to become active. The 9 yuan meridians kept trembling, and the yuan energy in his body uncontrollably surged out, turning into an invisible force that rushed into the meridians in his body. At the same time, outside the Dan Heart Pavilion, a moving image appeared on the gate. A figure was struggling to move forward. It was Nie Tian. President Meng. He's less than 500 meters away from the Dan Heart Soul Stone. An elder in red saw that Nie Tian was still moving forward and could not help but say, "Since the establishment of the Alchemist Guild, the highest record was 100 meters away from the Dan Heart Soul Stone. Nie Tian's spiritual force was only at the 51st step, so Meng Fanchen warned him not to go within 300 meters of the Dan Heart Soul Stone, or else his divine sense would be in danger. Let's keep watching." Meng Fanchen nodded. He felt that although Nie Tian's divine sense was surging, it was still very stable. 500 meters was not his limit. "Don't worry, Guild Leader Meng. Little brother Nie is best at surprising people. Therefore, I estimate that he will definitely be able to rush into the 300-meter range." Gu Yi was extremely confident in Nie Tian and said proudly. Meng Fanchen frowned slightly. He didn't want Nie Tian to put himself in danger. It was better to play it safe. Inside the Dan Heart Pavilion, Nie Tian continued to walk in. Although he felt that the impact on his spiritual sense was increasing, he became more and more excited. He had no intention of stopping. "Master, the aura here is a little strange. Other than pure mental strength, there seems to be another aura as well." Just then, Corpse Lord's voice came from within the Chaos Original coffin. "Yes." Nie Tian nodded slightly. He had also noticed this, but he didn't show it. "Dan Heart Soul Stone. I'd like to see what secrets are hidden here." The corner of Nie Tian's mouth twitched and he quickened his pace. At this moment, he was less than 300 meters away from the Dan Heart Soul Stone. He could clearly see that at the end of the tunnel, there was a strange black stone standing there, emitting a strange aura, as if it was a door that connected to the darkness. The invisible mental impact was getting stronger. Nie Tian felt like he was walking in a storm. The waves of mental strength were like invisible wind and rain blades, tearing at his soul. The pain was indescribable. It made him feel hopeless and helpless, as if he had fallen into a bottomless abyss. The deeper he fell, the more powerless he became. "It's 200 meters. Nie Tian endured the torture of despair. Although his divine sense was a little blurry, it was still very clear. He could already see the outline of the Dan Heart Soul Stone. It was a giant black stone that was tens of meters tall. Its surface was very smooth, but upon closer inspection, there were some strange words carved on it. What was even more strange was that these strange words were emitting a very unique aura. Words condensed from rules. Nie Tian suddenly realized that the strange words on the Dan Heart Soul Stone were actually condensed from the power of rules. "Master, don't you feel that the words on the black stone are a little familiar?" The Corpse Demon King seemed to have sensed something and said in horror. "Familiar?" Nie Tian was slightly stunned. The next moment, his expression changed. He suddenly thought of something and his body froze. The strange words on the Dan Heart Soul Stone were strange and unusual. They were like tadpoles. They were indeed very familiar. They were exactly the same as the runes on the Star Soul Tablet. Could it be that the Dan Heart Soul Stone and the Star Soul Tablet have something to do with each other? Tian immediately lost his composure, and a bold guess emerged in his mind. The runes on the Star Soul Tablet were also condensed from rules. Perhaps the two really had something to do with each other. The power of rules was the natural law of heaven and earth. Only when a martial artist reached the heavenly evolution realm and above, with the true meaning of heavenly evolution in their body, could they touch the threshold of the power of rules. But even at the celestial being realm or celestial emperor realm, martial artists could only use the rules of heaven and earth. It was absolutely impossible to change the rules of heaven and earth. Before getting the Star Soul Tablet, Tian never thought that someone could directly condense the power of rules. But the Star Soul Tablet made him understand that the power of rules could not only be moved, but could even be changed and controlled. So now that he saw the words condensed from the power of rules on the Dan Heart Soul Stone again, he was not so surprised. Tian took a deep breath and stopped. He began to compare the words on the Dan Heart Soul Stone and the Star Soul Tablet one by one. To his disappointment, there was not a single word on the two. These words were very strange. They were crooked like tadpoles. Rather than saying they were words, it was better to call them some kind of runes. Maybe the Star Soul Tablet and the Dan Heart Soul Stone were both created by God Realm martial artists. There is no connection between the two. Tian frowned, unable to hide his disappointment. And just as Tian was feeling extremely disappointed, the outside of the Dan Heart Pavilion was in an uproar. President Meng, Tian is within 200 meters of the Dan Heart Soul Stone. A red-clothed elder screamed, his eyes wide open. He really is here. Another followed. The surprise in his eyes was even greater than the former. Gu Yi and Yang Kai were also shocked at this moment. They did not expect that Tian could really withstand such a strong spiritual impact. Both of them had entered the Dan Heart Pavilion before, but they both stopped at 200 meters. But at that time, their spiritual power was close to the 60th rank, while Tian's spiritual power was only at the 51st rank. What a monster! Gu Yi gulped and said fiercely. Meng Fanchen did not speak. He had been paying attention to the halo around Tian's body on the screen. This halo represented Tian's divine sense. At this time, it was still very stable. There was no sign of it collapsing. This undoubtedly meant that Tian could still get closer to the Dan Heart Soul Stone. Look, his figure is moving again. At this time, Lien Wenchu let out a strange cry and pointed at the screen on the door. Chapter 551. Seeing Tian's figure move again, approaching the Core Heart Soul Stone, the elder's eyes widened in shock. What does Tian want to do? Gu Yi screamed and wanted to rush in but was stopped by Yang Kai. Don't disturb him. His soul is being attacked by the spiritual energy. Any movement from the outside world will stimulate him. We should just wait and see. Yang Kai was much calmer than Gu Yi and said lightly. Gu Yi knew that Yang Kai was right and could only nod. Tian was already 200 meters away from the Core Heart Soul Stone, far beyond Meng Fanchen's warning. If he went any further, he would be in danger. Inside the Core Heart Pavilion, Tian continued to move forward, wanting to see all the runes on the Core Heart Soul Stone, but with every step he took, he felt his soul tremble. After taking 50 steps, he was still 150 meters away from the Core Heart Soul Stone. His soul was trembling violently. The sound of an ancient horn seemed to ring in his ears, and the scene of an ancient battlefield appeared in front of him. On the battlefield that stretched as far as the eye could see, tens of thousands of beasts were galloping, and the heavens and earth were shaking. Dark clouds pressed down from all directions, and in the sky, there was a giant bird that was 1,000 meters long flying across, letting out mournful cries as it streaked across the sky. The light and shadow of ancient saints appeared, a huge altar, a golden Buddha statue more than 10,000 meters tall, and a huge palm pressed down. Suddenly, the world collapsed, mountains and rivers shattered. Nye Tian felt that he was already on the battlefield, merging with the world. His soul was the world and was being torn apart piece by piece. He wanted to stop it, but he was powerless. Master! In this crisis, Corpse Luo Demon Monarch's voice sounded. Huh! Nye Tian's body shook slightly and his soul suddenly became clear. The voice in his ears and the illusion in front of him disappeared. The spiritual energy impact of the core heart-soul stone was too terrifying. It actually made Nye Tian hallucinate. 150 meters left. Nye Tian took a deep breath and felt his blood boil, his yuan qi tumbling, and his soul enduring great suffering. This kind of pain was a heavy blow to his soul. He could not resist it and could only bear it silently. Master, you can't go any further. The Dan Heart Soul Stone is too strange. If you get any closer, I'm afraid your divine sense will collapse from the impact. The Corpse Demon King said in a deep voice. At this moment, Nye Tian was not the only one suffering from the mental attack. The Corpse Demon King was also suffering. Nye Tian nodded slightly, his eyes filled with unwillingness. He really wanted to know what was recorded in the Dan Heart Soul Stone. Unfortunately, his spiritual energy was too weak and he couldn't get close at all. It was also impossible for him to clearly feel the rule power on the Soul Stone. I'll cultivate here for 3 hours. Nye Tian sat cross-legged, closed his eyes and began cultivating. Although he could not get close to the Dan Heart Soul Stone, he certainly would not miss such a good opportunity to cultivate. Even if it was only 3 hours, it was still a huge opportunity for him. Nye Tian had the Primal Chaos Original Coffin, so 3 hours was equivalent to more than a day for him. He could feel that in this position of the Dan Heart Soul Stone, the spiritual force was abnormally active, and the cultivation effect was hundreds or even thousands of times better than usual. Therefore, 3 hours of spiritual energy cultivation was equivalent to several years of cultivation for Nye Tian. At the same time, outside the Pill Heart Pavilion. He's sitting down. Gu Yi's eyes flashed, his heart finally relaxing. If Nye Tian continued to walk, he really didn't know what would happen. President Meng, what is the distance between him and the Dan Heart Soul Stone? Yang Kai calmed down and asked Meng Fanchun, seemingly not believing his own judgment. Everyone present was an old monster with spiritual energy above the 60th order. As long as they looked around, the distance within a kilometer would not be more than half a meter. This was a terrifying perception. Meng Fanchun let out a long sigh and said, 148 meters. 148 meters. Everyone else was stunned, the shock in their hearts showing on their faces. They were all people who had entered the Pill Heart Pavilion before. Meng Fanchun had entered 3 times, and the best time was when he got within 150 meters of the Dan Heart Soul Stone. This was the first time Nye Tian had entered, and his spiritual energy was only at the 51st order, but he was actually able to get within 148 meters of the Dan Heart Soul Stone. This was incredible! Of the 8 people present, 1 was a white-robed elder and 7 were red-robed elders, representing the peak of the alchemic Tao in the 3,000 small world. But at this time, they were beaten black and blue by a 17-year-old boy. These people were once famous alchemy geniuses, but compared to Nye Tian, their talent couldn't even be considered trash. Nye Tian was too strong, so strong that it made people's hair stand on end. Inside the Pill Heart Pavilion, Nye Tian sat cross-legged, his whole body dripping with sweat. There was a faint white barrier around his body. It was actually formed by the purest mental energy. Nye Tian resisted the soul shock, calmed his mind, and continued to absorb the spiritual energy. As his mental strength flowed into his divine sense, a miraculous scene occurred. The star power on the raw star stone began to awaken in patches. Nye Tian felt waves of star energy pouring into his 9 elemental meridians, and the elemental force in his body began to surge. Awesome! Nye Tian was overjoyed and couldn't help but roar. Previously, he already knew that the increase in strength could bring about the awakening of star energy, and the awakening of star energy could increase spiritual energy. He didn't expect that the reverse process could also work. The increase in spiritual energy stimulated the awakening of star energy, and the awakening of star energy strengthened his strength. Nye Tian was immersed in the joy of rapidly becoming stronger. Unknowingly, 3 hours passed quickly. Outside the Pill Heart Pavilion, Meng Fanshen's eyes widened in shock and he said, "He's still not out?" 3 hours had passed, and Nye Tian had exceeded the time limit, but Meng Fanshen didn't have any intention of blaming him. The reason he set 3 hours was because he estimated that Nye Tian could only last 3 hours at a distance of 300 meters from the Dan Heart Soul Stone. But now, Nye Tian actually lasted at a distance of 148 meters for 3 hours, which was too unbelievable. One must know that as time passed, the spiritual energy that a martial artist had to endure would increase. "President, it's been 3 hours. Should we call him out?" Lien Wenchu's facial muscles twitched as he asked. "No need." Meng Fanshen waved his hand, and his eyes were filled with excitement. "I'd like to see how long he can last." There was a limit to the amount of spiritual energy a martial artist could absorb at one time. Once the limit was exceeded, the martial artist wouldn't be able to withstand it, and there was a possibility that the spiritual energy would backfire and cause dementia. Another 3 hours passed, and the surprise on everyone's faces was gradually replaced by horror. "He's still absorbing spiritual energy." Meng Fanshen saw that Nye Tian was like a black hole absorbing spiritual energy, and he was constantly absorbing the spiritual energy around him. Chapter 552. Even though the Dan Heart Soulstone was formed from spiritual energy, there was a limit to how much spiritual energy it contained. If it continued to be absorbed like this, it would definitely dry up. The other red-robed elders also looked at Meng Fanshen, hoping that he could stop Nye Tian. "Yes." Meng Fanshen nodded. Even though he wanted to see how long Nye Tian could last, the Dan Heart Soulstone did not belong to him after all. "He's standing up." Just at that moment, Gu Yi suddenly let out a strange cry. In the image, Nye Tian's figure really stood up. Moments later, the door of the Dan Heart Pavilion opened and Nye Tian walked out. "Leader Meng, I'm sorry, I've exceeded the time limit." Nye Tian apologized after he walked out, knowing that he was in the wrong. "Nye Tian, how do you feel now?" Meng Fanshen did not care and asked hurriedly. At the same time, his divine sense scanned Nye Tian's body, and his expression stiffened. The others were stunned when they saw Meng Fanshen's reaction. They immediately tried to sense Nye Tian's spiritual energy, and their expressions were even more exaggerated than Meng Fanshen's. "Leader Meng, are you guys alright?" Nye Tian naturally knew why everyone was stunned, but he still asked with a smile. In 6 hours, Nye Tian's spiritual energy had risen from level 51 to level 53. It had risen by 2 whole levels. If news of him increasing his spiritual energy by 2 levels in 6 hours were to spread, Nye Tian would definitely be treated as a monster. "Nye Tian, your spiritual energy has risen by 2 levels. Gu Yi exclaimed after a while, breaking the silence. Nye Tian smiled faintly and said, "It's only 2 levels. What's there to be surprised about?" "Only 2 levels?" Meng Fanshen and the others were about to curse. "How could you be so arrogant after getting such a benefit?" It was already very difficult to increase one's spiritual energy, especially after level 50. Basically, it would take 5 to 10 years to increase a level. How could Meng Fanshen and the others not be furious that Nye Tian had advanced 2 levels in 6 hours? Although Meng Fanshen felt that Nye Tian's increase in spiritual power was shocking enough, Nye Tian was not satisfied. 6 hours was equivalent to 2 or 3 days for him. In front of the Dan Heart Soul Stone, it was equivalent to several years. To think that he had only increased his spiritual force by 2 levels, it was really a bit lacking. Fortunately, at the same time that his mental power increased, Nie Tian's strength also increased by 2 layers, reaching the 3rd level of true essence. This made Nie Tian feel slightly better. In the midst of Meng Fanchen and the others' astonishment, a sudden change took place. Clang! A clear and resounding cry suddenly sounded out from the horizon. It was like a great bell, and it actually had a lingering feeling to it. It droned and exploded without end. Suddenly hearing this deafening voice, everyone's spirits were shaken, and they immediately felt an indescribable sense of comfort, as if all the pores on their bodies had opened up. What's that sound? Nie Tian felt that this cry was extremely unusual. He looked up to the horizon and saw a crimson pillar of light shooting up into the sky like a piece of firecloth, covering half the sky. Meng Fanchen and the others also looked up and saw the crimson figure in the sky, and their faces were filled with shock. To the northwest of the Su-Mi spiritual capital is the Divine Phoenix Peak. The crimson pillar of light flashed by, and Meng Fanchen couldn't help but exclaim when he saw a towering mountain peak. Nie Tian looked over and saw a mountain peak with a unique shape. It looked like a giant bird, and when it spread its wings, it actually looked like it had the power to shoot up into the sky. The surrounding mountain peaks all bowed their heads and gathered around it, as if they were subjects that had submitted to it. Clang! In the next moment, another cry sounded, giving off a strange feeling. It was as loud as thunder, and as low as the chirping of insects. Divine Phoenix Peak, what kind of place is that? Nie Tian couldn't help but ask when he felt a strange power from the cry, and it actually made his Yuan meridian tremble slightly. The Divine Phoenix Peak is the place where the disciples of the Mo clan cultivate. Could it be? Gu Yi replied to Nie Tian, but suddenly thought of something, and his expression changed, and he couldn't finish his sentence. Could it be what? Nie Tian asked anxiously. Since the Divine Phoenix Peak was the place where the disciples of the Mo clan cultivated, then it was very likely that Mo Rushi was also there. Clang! Then, without waiting for Gu Yi to speak, the 3rd cry sounded, and it was even more powerful than the previous 2. It seemed to have a strange power that made people's hearts tremble, and they had the urge to kneel down and worship it. The cry seemed to have endless power, and not just Su-Mi spiritual capital, but also the entire 3,000 small worlds could hear it. At this moment, Meng Fanchen remembered something, and his expression was extremely shocked. He said in a daze, "This is the Divine Phoenix Peak's 9 Heavens Phoenix Cry." 9 Heavens Phoenix Cry? Nie Tian was slightly stunned, not knowing what Meng Fanchen meant. Gu Yi glanced at Nie Tian and forcefully suppressed the shock in his heart, and explained, "The Divine Phoenix Peak is the place where the disciples of the Mo clan cultivate. At the peak there is a phoenix stone, and it is said that the soul of the ancient divine bird, the phoenix, is sealed in the stone. It is said that the disciples of the Mo clan have the blood of the phoenix in their veins, and can cause the phoenix stone to resonate, and thus obtain the soul of the phoenix sealed in the phoenix stone. However, according to the records of the Mo clan, only by causing the phoenix stone to resonate 9 times can the seal of the phoenix stone be broken, and the soul of the phoenix be obtained. 100 years ago, the head of the Mo clan, Mo Zhaojing, once caused the phoenix stone to resonate 3 times, but he was unable to break the seal. However, Mo Zhaojing's martial arts talent was stimulated, and he was called the #1 genius of the Mo clan in the past 500 years. In the past 100 years, the Mo clan did not produce another genius, so the phoenix stone was silent for 100 years. I never thought that, after 100 years, the Mo clan would once again have someone who could cause the phoenix cry to the 9 heavens. It seems that the Mo clan is going to produce another genius." When Gu Yi finished speaking, his expression could not help but be filled with yearning. the soul of the ancient divine bird, the phoenix, who would not yearn for it. Clang! Just as Gu Yi finished speaking, another cry sounded, and above the horizon, a scarlet-red pillar of light shot into the sky, like a divine phoenix soaring in the 9 heavens. Instantly, the wind and clouds surged, and the sky changed color. At this time, even little 9, who had been sleeping in the primal chaos original coffin, was awakened and became restless. Phoenix cried to the 9 heavens. After hearing Gu Yi's explanation, Nie Tian's nerves tightened, and a beautiful face appeared in his mind. His heart trembled. Could it be Mo Rushi? If there was anyone in the Mo clan who could cause the Phoenix Stone to resonate with the Phoenix cry to the 9 heavens, it would definitely be Mo Rushi. Nie Tian knew that Mo Rushi's spirit was the 9 heavens' divine phoenix, and it was not strange for it to cause the Phoenix cry to the 9 heavens. In fact, it was very reasonable. Clang! At this time, another Phoenix cry sounded from the divine Phoenix Peak. The Phoenix cry to the 9 heavens shook the world. Nye, brother Nye, how many times is this? Gu Yi was completely shocked, and his tongue began to spin. The 5th time. Nye Tian calmly replied. The 5th time, it was indeed the 5th time. Gu Yi's expression was dumbfounded, and he did not know how to express the shock in his heart. One must know that back then, Mo Zhaojing had only caused 3 Phoenix cries. Chapter 553. The 5th Phoenix cry rang out, and the red pillar of light that soared into the sky gradually condensed into a blurry image. It was like a fiery red phoenix that was bathed in blood and reborn. Everyone in the Shumi spirit capital looked in the direction of the divine Phoenix Peak, their eyes filled with worship. At this moment, below the divine Phoenix Peak, more than 1,000 disciples of the Mo family lifted their heads to look at the divine Phoenix Peak, revealing expressions of endless worship. They could feel the endless power within the cry of the phoenix. This power made them feel extremely comfortable, as if it had stimulated some sort of suppressed power within their bodies. Within the bodies of the Mo clan's disciples, there was more or less a little phoenix bloodline. It was just that the vast majority of the bloodline's power was too weak and could not be displayed. At this moment, the power of the bloodline was stimulated by the power of the phoenix cry, so it naturally became agitated. Who do you think triggered the phoenix cries to the heavens? Someone couldn't help but ask. That goes without saying. It must be the number 1 genius of the Mo clan, Mou. A young girl of the Mo clan said. Her words revealed her admiration for Mou. Mou, the number 1 genius of the Mo family's younger generation, one of the 3 great evildoers of Su Mi Ling City. If there was someone among the children of the Mo family who could cause phoenix cries in the 9th heaven, then the first person that everyone thought of was Mou. Mou was only 21 years old this year, but he was already a spirit wheel expert. Even Mo Zhaojing couldn't compare to him back then. Although he was only Mo Zhaojing's youngest son, his brothers were all suppressed by him in terms of talent and strength. Therefore, Mou was considered the next successor of the Mo family. Perhaps Mo Yun is also possible. Although her strength is not as good as Mou's, her talent is not weak. She is only 17 years old and has already reached the first layer of true element. Someone interjected, but was immediately met with disdainful looks from the surrounding people. In the hearts of everyone, only Mou had the qualifications to trigger phoenix cries to the 9th heaven. The others were not worthy at all. At the same time, a few figures flew out from the Mo family's residence. They stood in midair and looked in the direction of the divine Phoenix Peak. Among these few figures, there was a figure with a powerful aura. Although he had already restrained his aura to the extreme, it was still difficult to conceal his majestic aura. This man looked to be in his 40s or 50s. His facial features were resolute, and his expression was stern. His eyes flickered with a sharp light. It's been 100 years. Our Mo family has been silent for 100 years. Finally, an earth-shattering figure has appeared. Mou, You really did not let your father down. Ha ha. Suddenly, a wild laughter rang out, like thunder from the ninth heaven. The entire Shumi spirit capital could hear his voice. This person was none other than Mou's father, the Mo family's patriarch, Mo Zhaojing. Mo Zhaojing, a person who was as famous as Tang Hao, was a legend of the 3,000 small worlds. Under normal circumstances, Mo Zhaojing definitely wouldn't appear, but now that the phoenix cries appeared again, of course he had to appear. Clang! His wild laughter had just fallen when, as if in response, another phoenix cry rang out, surging in the peak of the 9 heavens. Scarlet flames once again streaked across the horizon, and the sky seemed to be on fire. Mo Xing, how many times has it been? Mo Zhaojing put away his smile and regained his serious expression. He asked Mo Xing, the great elder of the Mo family. Mo Xing's body trembled. He could not conceal his excitement as he replied, "Clan head, this is the 6th phoenix cry." At the 6th ring, everyone felt their hearts tremble, and the resonance of their bloodlines became even more obvious. "All right. Very good. As expected of my Mo Zhaojing's son, to actually be able to trigger the 6th phoenix cry." Mo Zhaojing laughed loudly. In his heart, he had already determined that the person who triggered the phoenix cries to the 9 heavens must be Mou. That's right. Sure enough, the student surpasses the master. Back then, the clan head only managed to cause 3 phoenix cries. But Mou actually caused 6 phoenix cries. He truly deserves to be called the number 1 genius of the Mo clan. Mo Xing said from the side. In his heart, he was also certain that the person who caused the phoenix cries was Mou. The other elders of the Mo family echoed one after another, and their faces were all beaming with joy. When the phoenix cries to the 9 heavens occurred, not only would the power of the bloodline of the person who triggered the phoenix cry be awakened, the other members of the Mo family would also benefit from it, and the power of the bloodline in their bodies would become stronger. After this phoenix cries to the 9 heavens, the overall strength of the Mo family would definitely rise to another level in less than 10 years. Clang! At this time, another phoenix cry rang out, resounding between the heavens and the earth, cutting through half of the sky. The 7th cry. Mo Zhaojing's expression slightly stiffened, and he said in shock, "Could it be that Mou wants to trigger the 9th phoenix cry and break the seal of the phoenix stone?" In the Mo family's ancestral records, in the past 1,000 years, the most powerful genius of the Mo family had only triggered 7 phoenix cries. Who would have thought that this record would actually be equaled today, and it was even showing signs of being broken. At the same time, in a remote and spacious area below the Divine Phoenix Peak, a young girl looked at the Divine Phoenix Peak with an intoxicated expression, and her expression froze for a long time. She was none other than the other genius of the Mo family, Mo Yun. There were 2 great geniuses in the Mo family, one was Mou, and the other was Mo Yun. Moreover, the 2 of them were brother and sister from the same father and mother. Mo Yun was the genius of the Mo family, and she had heard of the legend of the phoenix cries to the 9 heavens countless times since she was young. Her heart was filled with endless yearning, and she had personally gone to the Divine Phoenix Peak countless times, wanting to trigger the phoenix cries to the 9 heavens. Unfortunately, she returned in failure every time. Now that someone had triggered the phoenix cries to the 9 heavens, besides being shocked, her heart was filled with an uncontrollable sense of loss. However, Mo Yun was only at a loss, and the person next to her had gone completely crazy. "This is impossible, this is impossible, this is impossible." The figure beside Mo Yun kept repeating the same sentence. His eyes were dull, and his expression was foolish, as if he had gone crazy. If Nye Tian was here at this time, he would be able to recognize this crazy person at a glance. It was the number 1 genius of the Mo family, Mou, who had a life and death duel with him. When the phoenix cries to the 9 heavens occurred, Mou was exchanging pointers with Mo Yun. When the first phoenix cries sounded, he even thought that he had heard wrongly. But at this time, it had already sounded 7 times. Only then did he know that it was not an illusion, but that someone had really triggered the phoenix cries to the 9 heavens. For Mou, this was an unbearable blow. He awakened his primordial spirit at the age of 10, stepped into the manifestation realm at the age of 11, stepped into the giant spirit realm at the age of 13, stepped into the true element realm at the age of 16, and stepped into the divine wheel realm at the age of 20. He was known as the #1 genius of the Mo family, and one of the 3 monstrous geniuses of Sumi Ling City. The brilliance on his body overshadowed all the other martial artists of the same generation in Sumi Ling City. It was precisely because of this that with countless halos on top of his head, Mou believed that he could definitely trigger the phoenix cries to the 9 heavens. But unfortunately, he had tried countless times, but the phoenix stone seemed to be dead, and did not have the slightest reaction. This had almost become a sore point for him, because if he could not trigger the phoenix cries to the 9 heavens, he would not be able to prove his amazing talent. But now, someone had triggered the phoenix cries to the 9 heavens 1 step ahead of him. This was something he could not accept. Impossible! An unwilling voice resounded, and it seemed to be furious and miserable. Chapter 554. The 8th Phoenix Cry. Mo Zhaojing looked at the sky. The bright red that cut through the sky almost drove him crazy. It was the 8th Phoenix Cry. Was the seal of the ancient phoenix stone going to be broken today? At this moment, everyone's heart was in their throats. Countless eyes were focused on the divine phoenix peak, waiting for the last phoenix cry. Once the last phoenix cry sounded, the seal on the phoenix stone would be broken, and the soul of the phoenix would break out of the seal. That would be an earth-shattering scene. At this time, a familiar figure appeared in the distant sky of the divine phoenix peak. It was Nie Tian who hurried over. Although he did not have the bloodline of the phoenix in his body, he could still feel the vibration of the Yuan meridian in his body. And the 9th extreme chaos beast in the chaotic original coffin was already dancing excitedly. What a powerful seal aura! Nie Tian was still thousands of meters away from the divine phoenix peak, but he could already feel the endless power of the seal, which made his mind tremble. Clang! At this time, the 9th phoenix cry sounded like a clap of thunder, carrying the power of a thunderbolt. Boom! Suddenly, a red beam of light shot up from the divine phoenix peak. The powerful force dispersed the dark clouds in the sky, drawing the most dazzling brilliance in the sky. Immediately, the invisible energy spread in all directions, and a force that made the soul tremble spread throughout the entire Shumi spiritual capital. Below the divine phoenix peak, all the disciples of the Mo family were going crazy. The power of the bloodline in their body became active, as if it had become several times stronger in an instant, and the potential of the whole body was stimulated. To everyone, the 9th phoenix cry was so clear and exciting that it shook people's hearts. But to Mou, the phoenix cry that sounded in his ears was so ear-piercing and unbearable that it even drove him crazy. I don't believe it. The soul of the phoenix is mine. Of course, Mou understood what the 9th phoenix cry meant. He roared crazily, shouting out the greatest unwillingness and anger in his heart. The 9th phoenix cry meant that the seal of the phoenix stone was about to be broken, and at the same time, it also meant that the soul of the phoenix was about to come out. Mou would no longer have the chance to trigger the 9th heaven phoenix cry. Mou's roar was very loud, but compared to the cry of the phoenix, it was like the cry of an insect. No one paid any attention to his wild cries. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the divine phoenix peak. Boom! At this moment, the divine phoenix peak that was sent into the sky suddenly shook violently, as if the entire peak was about to collapse. Walla! Walla! In the next moment, the 2 mountains on both sides of the divine phoenix peak suddenly began to sway, as if they had a life of their own and were about to take flight. The soul of the phoenix is about to be born. Nie Tian furrowed his brows, and his figure hurriedly retreated several hundred meters. He knew that the power of the phoenix soul was absolutely not inferior to the birth of the ancient dragon soul in the Heaven Luo mountain. However, Nie Tian couldn't see Mo Rushi's shadow, so he couldn't help but worry. In the blink of an eye, he had been separated from Mo Rushi for a year and a half, and he wondered how she was doing during this time. Boom! At this time, the divine phoenix peak shook again, and suddenly, a red light appeared from the peak and spread out in an instant, like a red curtain, enveloping the divine phoenix peak. The mountain peak, which was more than 10,000 feet high, was suddenly covered with a layer of scarlet halo. From afar, it was dazzling, and brilliant. In the next moment, an even more shocking scene appeared. Rumble! With a loud noise, the entire divine phoenix peak suddenly collapsed, and a scarlet halo gushed out from the shattered mountain, slowly converging in the air. Everyone stared at the scene in front of them in a daze, completely unaware of what had happened. Huh! And at this time, Nie Tian slightly wrinkled his brows. He heard an earth-shattering noise sweeping over from all directions. This is... He subconsciously raised his head and saw that above the horizon, countless seven-colored auspicious clouds seemed to have suddenly come to life, pressing down on the divine phoenix peak. Of course, Nie Tian knew that the moving seven-colored auspicious clouds in the sky were not clouds, but flocks of birds. Countless birds crowded together, like a curtain covering the sky, moving towards the divine phoenix peak. Nie Tian. At this time, a voice sounded behind Nie Tian. Turning around, he saw that it was Gu Yi and the others. Other than the high-level elders of the Alchemist Association, Zhang Tingyin and Elder Yi were also here. This is the legendary 100 birds paying homage to the phoenix. Meng Fanchen was very knowledgeable, and immediately saw the clues, and said in surprise, "It seems that the phoenix soul in the phoenix stone is really going to be born." 100 birds paying homage to the phoenix? It was also Nie Tian's first time hearing this, and he looked at the collapsing divine phoenix peak, not knowing what would happen in the next moment. In the sky, as the divine phoenix peak collapsed, the scarlet halo gathered more and more, becoming denser and denser. After a moment, the scarlet halo actually condensed into 1,000 meters long giant red bird. Phoenix soul. When everyone saw the giant red bird in the sky, they all trembled, and their eyes revealed a deep sense of worship. It really is the phoenix soul. Nie Tian also gulped. The shock in his heart could not be any greater. Whoosh! Whoosh! In the next moment, the phoenix soul spread its wings, which were 1,000 meters long, and reflected half of the sky red. With a sudden shake, it soared into the sky, like a fiery red pillar of light connecting the sky and the earth. Boom! At this moment, the phoenix soul's soaring aura completely exploded, and gushed out wildly, vast and mighty, as if there was no end to it. At this moment, everyone in Sumi's spiritual capital felt their souls tremble. This was a kind of trembling that could not be resisted, and could not be stopped. The phoenix soul soared in the sky, and an endless stretch of colorful clouds appeared in the sky. Countless birds followed behind the colorful clouds, chasing after the king. This kind of scene was too beautiful, too shocking. It made people reluctant to blink, afraid that they would miss any wonderful scene. At this moment, everyone's ears seemed to be playing beautiful music, like the sounds of nature, intoxicating and infatuating. The heavenly music lasted for an unknown amount of time, and the scarlet figure in the sky gradually slowed down. In the end, it actually stood in the sky, looking down on everything like a phoenix descending from the heavens. After a while, the flock of birds began to disperse, and in the blink of an eye, disappeared without a trace, as if nothing had happened. The 100 birds paying homage to the phoenix has ended. What will happen next? Mo Zhaojing looked at the sky, and his heart trembled. He was still proud of his son, but he did not know that the person who caused the phoenix cry to the heavens was not his son. Before he finished his sentence, The phoenix aura in the air began to surge, and quickly gathered toward the phoenix soul in the sky. As the phoenix aura continued to gather, the phoenix soul became more and more intense, and there was a faint sign of it condensing into a physical form. "There's someone in the phoenix soul." At this moment, Meng Fanchen saw a human figure appear in the center of the scarlet light, and he could not help but exclaim, Nie Tian frowned and looked carefully. Indeed, he saw a figure standing in the center of the phoenix soul. Chapter 555. The center of the phoenix soul was where the power of the phoenix was the densest. Who would have thought that there would be a person there? Without a doubt, this person was the one who triggered the phoenix cry to the heavens. That's the person who's about to receive the inheritance of the phoenix soul. He's also the one who triggered the phoenix cry to the heavens. Meng Fanchen couldn't hide his excitement. What kind of person is able to break the seal of the phoenix stone? It should be Mou, Gui said from the side. It wasn't clear if he was answering Meng Fanchen or talking to himself. Nie Tian didn't pay attention to the others. His gaze was fixed on the phoenix soul in midair. He quietly observed the figure in the sky. He was tens of thousands of meters away from the phoenix soul. Even if his mental power was at the 53rd level, he could only see a silhouette. But this blurry silhouette gave Nie Tian a strange sense of familiarity. "Mo Rushi, is that really you?" Nie Tian's lips twitched as he muttered to himself. Clang! At this moment, the phoenix soul let out another cry that shook the heavens and the earth. This was the final cry of the phoenix soul. In the next moment, the phoenix soul that was formed from the power of the phoenix suddenly became distorted, as if it was being pulled by a huge force. The figure in the center of the phoenix soul suddenly became a whirlpool that absorbed everything. Endless power of the phoenix instantly poured into the figure's body. In the blink of an eye, all the power of the phoenix was completely absorbed by the figure. The phoenix soul disappeared without a trace. The divine phoenix peak returned to peace. The Sumeru spirit returned to peace. The entire 3,000 small worlds also returned to peace. The moment all the red light disappeared, a peerless figure appeared in the sky. At this moment, she stood in midair. Her body was surrounded by a faint red halo. Her entire body emitted a pure and holy aura, giving off a startling feeling. Her thin clothes fluttered in the wind, outlining her graceful and peerless curves. Her crimson hair fluttered in the wind. Her exquisite facial features were breathtakingly beautiful. This was a woman of extreme beauty. For people with insufficient willpower, this kind of beauty was simply an illusion. One look was enough to make people lose their mind. It's not Mou. Even though they were separated by tens of thousands of meters, everyone could still recognize that the figure in the air was a woman, not Mou at all. How is this possible? High up in the sky, Missouri Zhaojing was stunned speechless. His excited expression froze and he couldn't react for a long time. He had just determined that the person who caused the phoenix cries to the ninth heaven must be Mou, but the person who appeared in front of him at this time was actually a woman. How could he accept this? She's... On the other side, Nie Tian was also stunned for a moment. He couldn't believe his eyes and blurted out a name, Mo Rushi. Although the appearance of the figure in the sky had changed slightly, Nie Tian could still tell at a glance that she was Mo Rushi. In the past, Mo Rushi was already a city-toppling beauty. At this moment, she was even more beautiful. It was as if one would be subdued by her astonishing beauty with just a single glance. It had been a year and a half since Mo Rushi came to Shumi Spirit Capital from a small place in Moyang City. But in this year and a half, she didn't have a good time. Although she obtained more cultivation resources in Shumi Spirit Capital, she was also ostracized by her family members. Because of her outstanding talent, many people in the Mo family regarded her as a competitor. Everyone regarded her as an enemy, not a member of the family. 3 months after coming to the Mo family, her father, Mo Tai, was sent to another place and left Shumi's spirit capital. Emorushi didn't do anything other than cultivate every day. She was always worried about one person in her heart. She hoped that person would come soon and take her away from the Emo family, away from this inhumane cage. But she knew that that person needed time to grow. If he came too early, not only would he not be able to take her away, he might even die here. In order to survive in the Emo family, she had to desperately improve her strength. Only with strength could she protect herself. Emorushi was very low-key and tried not to attract other people's attention. But today she came to the top of Divine Phoenix Peak for the first time. Emorushi had certainly heard about the legend of Phoenix cries in the ninth heaven, but she didn't think too much about it. She just had the idea of giving it a try. Who knew that she would actually succeed? Oh no, this time it will definitely attract the attention of those people. After obtaining the Phoenix Soul, this was Emorushi's first thought. If she had known that she could attract Phoenix cries in the ninth heaven, Emorushi would not have come here. For her now, living was the most important thing. She just wanted to wait for Nye Tian to come to find her. She didn't care about other things. Emorushi looked down, and her beautiful eyes flickered. She thought, this time it's big trouble. If Mou knows that I got the Phoenix Soul, he will definitely kill me. The children of the Mo family knew that in addition to Mou's powerful talent, he was also very overbearing. He regarded the Phoenix Soul as his. If anyone dared to snatch his things, there was only one word for them: death. Emorushi was the only person in the Mo family who had a rank 7 origin spirit like Mou, so she was regarded as a thorn in the latter's flesh. If she hadn't been very low-key in the past year and a half, she would have been killed many times already. In fact, Emorushi's 9th Heaven Phoenix origin spirit was a rank 9 supreme origin spirit, but Nye Tian had played a little trick on it, so it was identified as a rank 7 origin spirit. If Mou knew that she was a rank 9 supreme origin spirit, he would have already killed her. The Mo family could only have one genius, and that was him, Mou. Emorushi calmed down and checked her body. Suddenly, she found that her appearance had changed. The first thought that came to her mind was, Nye Tian wouldn't recognize me, right? However, she immediately dispelled this idea. She believed that even if she became ugly, Nye Tian would still be able to recognize her at a glance. Then, Emorushi found that her strength had directly advanced to the first level of true essence, and she was suddenly shocked. Although her martial arts aptitude was very good, her origin spirit had awakened too late, and she had missed the best time to cultivate. In the 1.5 years in the Shumi spiritual capital, Emorushi's strength had reached the first level of the giant spirit realm. She did not expect that after fusing with the Phoenix Soul, her strength would directly improve by a great realm. This was an unexpected surprise for Emorushi. However, just when she was a little happy, a figure suddenly appeared and flew toward her. Mou. Emorushi saw the face that was rushing toward her, and her small face suddenly turned white. Although her strength had reached the first level of true essence, compared to Mou, who was at the first level of the spirit wheel, there was still a huge gap. Chapter 556. Although Emorushi's appearance had changed a little, her hair had become red, and there was a strange and evil aura around her, Mou still recognized her at a glance. Mou did not expect that the person who triggered the Phoenix cry to the 9th heaven and obtained the inheritance of the Phoenix Soul was actually Emorushi. Although he knew that Emorushi's true spirit aptitude had reached the 7th rank, after all, she had already missed the best cultivation age. Her strength in all aspects was below him. Even he could not trigger the Phoenix cry to the 9th heaven, so how could Emorushi do it? With this doubt in his heart, Mou's anger suddenly rose. Mou, the inheritance of the Phoenix Soul should be obtained by those with strength. I triggered the Phoenix cry to the 9th heaven, so I should obtain the Phoenix Soul. Emorushi's face slightly stiffened, then she calmed down and said lightly. Emorushi had integrated with the Phoenix Soul, and her strength had directly advanced from the first layer of the giant spirit realm to the first layer of the true essence realm. In the future, her cultivation speed would also be greatly accelerated, far exceeding that of ordinary people. However, her current strength was still too weak compared to Mou. If the other party wanted to kill her, she would have no power to fight back. Good, the inheritance should be obtained by those with strength. Mou smiled coldly, and the killing intent of his whole body became more obvious. He brazenly said, "Mo Rushi, do you think you are stronger than me?" In Mou's view, the phoenix soul was his. Other people should not act rashly, and those who did should die. "Do you really want to kill me?" Mo Rushi felt a chill envelop her, and dense beads of sweat oozed from her forehead. She subconsciously took 2 steps back. "I want to kill you because you deserve to die." Mou let out a fierce roar, and the aura around his body swelled up. A mighty force suddenly whistled out, and a violent aura suddenly bloomed. An ear-piercing sound rang in the air, and suddenly, countless black blades appeared, attacking Mo Rushi. At this time, many people had already surrounded the 2 figures in the air, and they could clearly see everything. "It's Mou, he wants to kill that girl." Someone saw this scene and exclaimed, "That girl should be from the Mo family, right? Why does Mou want to kill her?" Someone asked. "I heard that Mou is a tyrannical person who regards the inheritance of the phoenix soul as his own. That girl snatched his thing, so of course he wants to kill her." There was no lack of intelligent people in the crowd. They shook their heads and said they couldn't help but feel a little regretful. If Mo Rushi were to die, then the phoenix soul would disappear along with her. Of course, it would be a pity. Mo Rushi only had the strength of the first layer of true essence, and the most important thing was that she had almost no combat experience. In the face of Mou's fatal blow, she instinctively used her true essence, and a faint red halo appeared around her body. Unfortunately, Mou's strength was too strong. Behind him, there was a faint shadow of a giant black bird. The black blade cut through the void and directly scattered the true essence around Mo Rushi's body. "Mo Rushi, accept your death." Mou let out a ferocious laugh. He couldn't wait to see the moment Mo Rushi died. However, just as the black blade was about to pierce through Mo Rushi's body, something happened. "Who dares to touch her?" A loud roar rang out in the sky. Shortly after, a majestic sword intent appeared and turned into a sword shield that enveloped Mo Rushi. Bang! There was a loud noise like a sudden clap of thunder, and billowing waves of air instantly surged out. The black blade failed to penetrate the sword intent shield. Mo Rushi was only sent flying by the impact, and she cried out in panic. But the next moment, she suddenly felt a pair of powerful hands appear and hold her slender waist. Then, a strange yet familiar aura appeared, causing her pretty face to be stunned for a moment. She then shouted out a name, "Nia Tian." At this critical moment, the person who saved Mo Rushi and held her in his arms was none other than Nia Tian. "Nia Tian, is it really you?" Mo Rushi felt a warmth all over her body. She turned around and saw a familiar handsome face. Her delicate little face suddenly froze, and her eyes were almost infatuated, as if she was in a dream. When she was held in the arms of a pair of big hands, there was an inexplicable warmth in her heart. That familiar aura made her almost unable to believe it. The person she thought about day and night was now by her side, and he was holding her tightly in his arms. At this moment, Mo Rushi felt that she was the happiest woman in the world. She hugged the young man in front of her tightly. Her yearning for a year and a half gathered into tears at this moment, flashing in her beautiful eyes. She could no longer control her tears, and they flowed down unscrupulously. Nia Tian felt the body of the girl in his arms trembling, and the anger in his heart was also trembling. From the scene of Mo trying to kill Mo Rushi just now, Nia Tian could guess that she did not have a good life in the Mo family. She must have been treated unfairly, ostracized by many people, and suffered too many grievances. Rushi, I'm sorry, I've let you suffer. Nye Tian hugged the girl in his arms tightly, feeling infinite guilt in his heart. From today on, he would not let anyone hurt Mo Rushi again. You are Nye Tian. Mo reacted at this time. When he saw Nye Tian's face clearly, the shock in his heart was all revealed on his face. Never in his wildest dreams had he imagined that Nye Tian would show up at this moment and block his attack. Ah! Suddenly, Mo Rushi also thought of something and screamed. She looked up at Nye Tian and said, Nye Tian, why are you here? Although Mo Rushi wanted to see Nye Tian, it was very dangerous for the latter to appear here at this time. For the past year and a half, Mo Rushi had been staying in the Mo family and never went out. She had no friends, so she did not know any news about Nye Tian. However, she knew that Nye Tian and Mo were opposing each other. Now that he appeared here, Mo would not let him go. Mo was now an expert in the spirit wheel realm. He was definitely not someone that Nye Tian could contend with. Girl, you made such a big noise. If I didn't show up, would you still be able to keep your little life? Nye Tian didn't pay any attention to Mo at all. He stroked Mo Rushi's little head lovingly and said lightly. Mo Rushi buried her cheek on his broad chest. There was an inexplicable sense of security in her heart. As long as this man was by her side, even if the sky fell and the earth split, she was not afraid. Nye Tian, I order you to let go of Mo Rushi. Mo saw Nye Tian and Mo Rushi acting intimately, as if there was no one else around. The anger in his heart flared up again, and he shouted. Although Mo never had any improper thoughts about Mo Rushi and only regarded her as an ordinary child of the Mo family, the latter's behavior with a man made him feel strange. It was as if something that should belong to him had been taken away by someone else. This feeling was unacceptable to him. Ordering me? Nye Tian raised his eyebrows and glanced at Mo. At the same time, he hugged the girl in his arms tighter and said faintly, Who are you? What right do you have to order me? Chapter 557. Nye Tian was slightly taken aback. His body trembled slightly as he shielded Mo Rushi behind him. Taking a step forward, sword intent surged out. At the same time, there was a reaction from the star spirit tablet, and a huge amount of star power gushed out. Boom! The sword intent and star power perfectly fused together, and the power of the rank 4 Azura demon hand burst out. A bloody ghost hand appeared in the air and crazily grabbed at Mo. Mo felt a boundless aura, and his heart suddenly trembled. Shortly after, his whole body released an even more violent aura. He did not expect that in just a year and a half, Nye Tian's strength would actually become so terrifying. Purring, purring, purring. In the void, there was a rumbling sound and a dazzling light surged out. Following that, a rolling wave of qi spread out in all directions. Nye Tian lightly tapped his foot and retreated dozens of meters with Mo Rushi. He said indifferently, Mo, is this your strength? Sumeru Spiritual Capital's 3 monstrous geniuses are only SOSO. Mo stabilized his body and looked at Nye Tian with a poisonous gaze. Hearing the other party ridicule him, he simply gnashed his teeth in hatred. But at this time, he was much calmer. After sensing Nye Tian's strength, his expression immediately stiffened. Third stage of true essence. Nye Tian was actually already at the third stage of true essence. Although the third stage of true essence was still very far from the divine wheel realm, in Mo's view, this was a strength that made people unable to help but tremble in fear. One must know that just a year and a half ago, when Mo first met Nye Tian, the latter was still an ant at the second stage of true essence, and at that time, Mo was already at the 9th stage of true essence. In a year and a half, Mo advanced from the 9th stage of true essence to the 1st stage of divine wheel realm. Although it was considered to have advanced by a large realm, it was actually only an increase of 1 stage. But what about Nye Tian? He directly advanced from the 2nd stage of true essence to the 3rd stage of true essence, skipping the Wanxiang realm and the giant spirit realm. In a year and a half, he advanced by 3 large realms. Was Nie Tian still a human? He was simply a monster. What was even more unacceptable to Mou was that in the confrontation just now, the strength displayed by Nie Tian was not under his own. A martial artist at the 3rd layer of true essence was actually able to contend with a martial artist at the 1st layer of the divine wheel. If Mou hadn't personally witnessed it, he definitely wouldn't have believed it. In fact, Mo Feng had reminded Mou before, telling him that Nie Tian's strength was somewhat strange. If he was allowed to grow, the consequences would be unimaginable. At that time, Mou didn't care about it. He just thought that Mo Feng was worried too much. But now, it seemed that the strangeness of Nie Tian's strength was beyond Mo Feng's description. In just a year and a half, he was already able to compete with Mou. If he was given another year and a half, wouldn't he be able to challenge Tang Hao, Mo Zhaojing, and the others? Nie Tian's strength was too terrifying. It simply made Mou unable to understand. Nie Tian, you. Not only was Mou shocked, but Mo Rushi was also stunned as she looked at Nie Tian in disbelief. Who are you? Right at this moment, a thunderous roar resounded. Shortly after, a figure appeared in the sky. It was as if a demon god had descended. The wild aura could almost shatter the void, causing people to uncontrollably tremble. What a powerful aura! Nie Tian looked at the person who came and his heart trembled. This person's aura was actually even more terrifying than Martial Dan Hall's Zhang Tingyin. He was already a martial artist at the peak of the divine wheel realm. Father! Mou looked at the person who came and respectfully called out, Father? Nie Tian was slightly stunned. He didn't expect that the person who came was the head of the Mo family, Mo Zhaojing. Mo Zhaojing and Tang Hao were equally famous. The two of them were known as the 2 pinnacle of the 3,000 small world. No wonder this person's strength was so strong. It was actually Mo Zhaojing. Mo Rushi caused the phoenix cry of the 9 heavens and also broke the seal of the phoenix stone, obtaining the inheritance of the phoenix soul. It wasn't strange that this matter alarmed Mo Zhaojing. Nie Tian. Nie Tian looked at Mo Zhaojing and said his name indifferently. It was neither servile nor overbearing. There was even a hint of provocation. Although Mo Zhaojing was a pinnacle figure of the 3,000 small worlds, Nie Tian didn't put him in his eyes. Moreover, Mo Rushi was treated unfairly in the Mo family, but this head of the Mo family didn't care about it. It could be assumed that he wasn't a good person. Nie Tian? Mo Zhaojing frowned. He seemed to have heard this name somewhere. He glanced at Mou and immediately remembered that there was a person who had a life and death battle with Mou in 3 years. That person was called Nie Tian. Although Mo Zhaojing knew about this matter, he had never taken it seriously and only treated it as a joke. A young man from a remote place was nothing more than an ant. How could he be compared to his genius son? This battle was destined to be a joke. However, when he saw Mou and Nie Tian collide a moment ago, and then heard Nie Tian's name, he was actually a little worried. Mo Zhaojing's sharp eyes looked at Nie Tian and said coldly, Who are you? Mo Rushi saw Mo Zhaojing's anger soaring to the sky. Her pretty face was filled with panic, and she subconsciously grabbed Nie Tian's hand. Nie Tian tightly held Mo Rushi's hand and took a step forward and said coldly, Who I am is not important. What's important is Mo Rushi. She is mine and I will take her away today. He is Tianluo City's Lord Nie Tian. At this time, the spectators in the air recognized Nie Tian and exclaimed, Nie Tian? Isn't that the guy who killed people in the Alchemist Guild? How is he still alive? Everyone was puzzled. They didn't expect that Nie Tian was still alive. When Nie Tian was taken away by Zhang Tingyin in front of everyone thought that he was dead for sure. Killing a 4th-order alchemist in front of everyone and being taken away by the Martial Dan Temple Master, how could there be any chance of survival? But who would have thought that Nye Tian was still alive and was now facing the Mo family's patriarch? First the Alchemist Guild, then the Mo family. Who is this kid? Does he want to offend all the major forces in the Sumeru's spiritual capital? The crowd's eyes trembled as they looked at Nye Tian with strange expressions. And Mo Zhaojing frowned again. He didn't expect that a youth would dare to talk to him like this and even want to take away a member of the Mo family in front of him. This kind of behavior was no different from an idiot. Nye Tian, do you know who I am? Mo Zhaojing's expression changed as he spoke. At the same time, a terrifying aura pressed down on Nye Tian. At this time, all the major forces in the Sumeru's spiritual capital were watching. If he didn't teach Nye Tian a lesson, what dignity would he have left as the Mo family's patriarch? Nye Tian's eyes flickered as he felt a boundless pressure pressing down on him, making him feel breathless. His face gradually turned red, but his eyes were firm as he held his breath and said faintly, "Even if you are Mo Zhaojing, I will still take him away." Courting death. Hearing Nye Tian call his name, this was a naked provocation. Mo Zhaojing's eyes narrowed as a trace of killing intent flashed through his eyes. An even more terrifying aura pressed down on him. Chapter 558. Mo Zhaojing was thinking very far at this time. Killing Nye Tian was not only to maintain the dignity of the Mo family, but also to save Mou. With Nye Tian's potential, if he was given another year and a half, who knew how terrifying his growth would be? Once Nye Tian grew up, not only would Mou's life be in danger, but the entire Mo family would also be implicated. Therefore, it was better to get rid of a super monster like Nye Tian as soon as possible. As Mo Zhaojing's pressure increased, Nye Tian felt a sharp pain in his body, as if he was about to explode. His face twisted. Hua! Just at this moment, another tremendous aura enveloped over. Like a spring breeze and rain, it dissolved the pressure from Nye Tian's body. Pooh! Nye Tian suddenly felt his body loosen up, and his heart felt much better. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his complexion improved. Nye Tian, are you all right? Emorushi asked Nye Tian. When she turned around, she saw a few more figures behind her. All of them had restrained their auras and were unfathomable. I'm fine. Nye Tian wiped the blood from the corner of his lips and said with a faint smile, Rushi, trust me. I will definitely take you away today. Yes. Emorushi nodded heavily, unable to conceal the happiness and pride on her face. With such an outstanding man willing to bet his life for her, she was naturally very happy. Guild leader Meng, what is the meaning of this? When Mo Zhaojing saw that the person who saved Nye Tian was actually the president of the Alchemist Guild, Meng Fanchen, he frowned even more and asked in a cold tone. Meng Fanchen was the only 7th-tier alchemist in the 3,000 small worlds. He was known as the pinnacle of alchemy. Everyone thought that his alchemy Dao attainments were unparalleled, so they overlooked his martial Dao strength. However, Mo Zhaojing knew that aside from Meng Fanchen's unfathomable attainments in the alchemy Dao, his martial strength was also extremely terrifying. At the very least, he wasn't any weaker than the Dan Martial Hall's Zhang Tingyin. Even Mo Zhaojing didn't dare say he could beat Meng Fanchen. Mo Zhaojing's heart sank when he saw Meng Fanchen's sudden attack. The other elders of the Mo family also had ugly expressions on their faces as they tried to guess what Meng Fanchen was trying to do. Mo family head, Mr. Nye Tian, is now a red-robed elder of the Alchemist Association. How can I stand by idly and watch you injure him? Meng Fanchen's gaze was sharp, but his face was calm. Red-clothed elder? Hearing Meng Fanchen's words, Mo Zhaojing revealed the most shocked expression he had ever shown in his life. He stared at Meng Fanchen for a long time as if to say, "Are you kidding me?" As soon as Meng Fanchen's words left his mouth, the spectators went into an uproar. Nye Tian is the red-robed elder of the Apothecary Guild? How was this possible? He just killed the Alchemist Guild's master Ing Rue. How did he suddenly become a red-cloved elder? Don't tell me that killing a tier 4 alchemist can make me a red-robed elder? Then I'll go kill one too. Kill your sister. If you dare to touch a tier 4 alchemist's finger, I guarantee that you will die without any dregs remaining. The Nietian city lord has become a red-robed elder. This is strange. Of course it's strange. How old is Nietian? He hasn't even grown his hair yet. To become a red-robed elder at such a young age, I must be a donkey. The crowd started guessing, and all sorts of exaggerated expressions expressed the shock in their hearts. A red-robed elder in his teens was too shocking. Everyone, I am the president of the Apothecary Guild, Meng Fanchen, and I am here to announce something. Before the crowd could react, Meng Fanchen's voice sounded again. Heaven Luo City Lord Nietian is already a red-robed elder of the Apothecary Guild. The matter of him killing Ying Rui previously was secretly instructed by me. No one else knew about it. Ying Rui used medicinal ingredients prohibited by the guild and secretly refined poisonous pills. This is a serious violation of the guild's rules, and he must not be punished. Therefore, I ordered Elder Nietian to kill him. As for the ringing of the Dan Marshall bell, it was purely an accident. His calm voice was like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples. The crowd burst into an uproar again. Nietian glanced at Meng Fanchen and naturally understood the latter's intentions. Meng Fanchen didn't want the Apothecary Guild's dignity to be damaged, but he couldn't reveal Ying Rui's true identity to the outside world. Therefore, he could only compromise and say that Ying Rui violated the guild's rules and was killed. This way, not only did he protect the Apothecary Guild's reputation, but he also concealed Ying Rui's true identity. If the outside world knew that dozens of Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion's assassins had infiltrated the Apothecary Guild, the guild's face would be thrown into a pigsty. Nietian agreed with Meng Fanchen's method. The Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion was originally a shady organization. It was better to get rid of those assassins in the guild secretly. However, Nietian was very worried that other than Diao Zhengde and Ying Rui, there might be other assassins hiding in the Alchemy Guild. Since the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion could plant a red-robed elder in the Apothecary Guild, why couldn't they plant a spy in the Dan Marshall Hall? After a moment, Mo Zhaojing calmed down and looked at Meng Fanchen, Nietian, and the others with hatred. He withdrew his killing intent. Since Nietian was already a red-robed elder, of course he couldn't make a move. Unless he wanted the Mo clan and the Apothecary Guild to go to war. Mo Rushi, follow me back to the Mo clan. Mo Zhaojing's eyes flashed with a cold light and said coldly. Mo Rushi's charming face stiffened. Although she didn't want to leave Nietian, she still walked forward slowly. Her father and clansmen were still in the Mo clan. If she left with Nietian at this time, Mo Zhaojing would definitely kill them in anger. However, Nietian held her hand tightly and turned his gaze to Mo Zhaojing. He said indifferently, Mo clan head, I have already said it. Mo Rushi is my person. I am going to take her with me today. Your person? Mo Zhaojing's eyes narrowed slightly. He laughed awkwardly. Her surname is Mo, so she is a member of the Mo clan. Ask her if she is willing to leave with you. If she is willing to leave with you, this clan head won't. No need to ask. Not waiting for Mo Zhaojing to finish, Nietian directly interrupted him. His eyes revealed a hint of contempt and said, Mo clan head, state your conditions. What will make you let Mo Rushi and her family go? Nietianqing's family was very deep. Of course he knew what Mo Zhaojing was thinking. He was using the lives of Mo Tai and the others to threaten Mo Rushi to stay. The dignified Mo clan head actually used such a despicable method to force a girl. It was really despicable. And Mo Zhaojing was very angry when he was interrupted by Nietian. However, looking at the few people behind him, he could only suppress his anger. He glanced at Nietian and said, Mo Rushi obtained the Phoenix Soul inheritance. That originally belongs to the Mo clan. If this clan head allows you to take her away, wouldn't it be? Don't talk nonsense, state your conditions. Once again, Nie Tian forcefully interrupted Mo Zhaojing's words and said in a cold tone. You! Mo Zhaojing's chest violently rose and fell a few times. The suppressed anger made his face turn red. Being interrupted by Nie Tian again was equivalent to being slapped in the face in front of everyone. How could he not be angry? Nie Tian, what if this clan head doesn't let her go? Taking a deep breath, Mo Zhaojing's eyes trembled with anger. He gritted his teeth and said. Chapter 559. Mo Zhaojing was furious, but he didn't dare to make a move on Nie Tian. He had to consider the consequences. You won't let him go? Nie Tian stared at Mo Zhaojing with a cold glint in his eyes. If you don't let him go, I'll rob him. Rob? Mo Zhaojing seemed to have heard the funniest joke in the world. The corner of his mouth twitched. Do you think you can take it away from me? If we can snatch it, we'll snatch it. If we can't, we'll snatch it. Nie Tian strode forward and loudly said, Patriarch Mo, you're well aware of the consequences if you accidentally kill me given my current identity. Mo Rushi attracted the cry of the phoenix to the 9 heavens and obtained the inheritance of the phoenix's soul, which was what she deserved. If you think that letting her go will damage the Mo family's reputation, then you can state your conditions. What do you think can make up for the phoenix soul? Just tell me, I'll definitely agree to it. Nie Tian spoke in an orderly manner, neither servile nor overbearing. He believed that Mo Zhaojing was a smart person and would not make a stupid choice. Mo Zhaojing calmed down after hearing Nie Tian's suggestion. He originally thought that it was Mo Yu who triggered the phoenix cries to the 9th heaven, but he did not expect it to be Mo Rushi. In his eyes, the phoenix soul belonged to the Mo family, and it could only be inherited by a direct descendant of the Mo family. Although Mo Rushi was a member of the Mo family, she was not a direct descendant. Ever since Mo Rushi had returned to the Mo family, he had never cared about the latter. She was just a dispensable person. However, this insignificant person had actually obtained the inheritance of the phoenix soul. This was something he could not accept. At a certain moment, Mo Zhaojing had a crazy idea. He wanted to remove the phoenix soul from Mo Rushi's body and integrate it into Mo Yu's body. This approach was very dangerous. Mo Rushi would undoubtedly die if she lost the phoenix soul, and the probability of Mo Yu fusing with the phoenix soul was also very low. However, Mo Zhaojing did not care about Mo Rushi's life or death. He only cared about the phoenix soul. What he could think of, Nie Tian could naturally think of as well. Nie Tian saw that the Mo father and son were obsessed with the phoenix soul and was worried that they would go to extremes. That was why he had to take Mo Rushi away. Mo Rushi, who possessed the phoenix soul, would be like a little lamb in the midst of a pack of wolves if she stayed in the Mo family. How could Nie Tian be at ease? Elder Nie Tian, how arrogant of you! Mo Zhaojing's eyes were sharp. He smiled sinisterly and said, If I wanted a heaven-ranked martial technique or a rank 9 emperor weapon, would you be able to take them out? Mo Zhaojing could see Nie Tian's determination, but he couldn't just let him take Mo Rushi away, so he had to demand an exorbitant price. Heaven-ranked martial technique? A tier 9 emperor weapon? Before Nie Tian could speak, Elder Yi couldn't help but sneer. Mo Zhaojing, are you crazy? These two things, not to mention Nie Tian, even your Mo family might not be able to take them out. Heaven-ranked martial technique was still fine. The 4 great clans all had a low-ranked martial technique, but a tier 9 emperor weapon, it was probably impossible to find one in the entire 3,000 small world. Mo Zhaojing was clearly acting shamelessly by offering such a condition. Yi Linyun? Mo Zhaojing couldn't help but be stunned when he saw the face that suddenly appeared. He then smiled and said, The world-defying wild blade from back then has also become a member of the Alchemist Guild? He sensed Elder Ye's strength and the corner of his mouth raised into an undisguised sneer. Elder Yi smiled plainly and said, I am only Mr. Nie's friend, not a member of the Alchemist Guild. Mo family head, as long as I take out a heaven-ranked martial technique and a Tier 9 Emperor weapon, from now on, Mo Rushi and her clansmen will no longer have anything to do with the Mo family, right? Nie Tian said at this moment with an inexplicable smile in his eyes. A heaven-ranked martial technique and a Tier 9 Emperor weapon, to other people, was simply impossible, but to Nie Tian, it was just a matter of a sentence. Because he had both of these things in his hand. Mo Zhaojing saw Nie Tian's indifferent expression and couldn't help but narrow his eyes. He then sneered and said, Elder Nie Tian, since you said so, then this family head's condition is a heaven-ranked martial technique and a Tier 9 Emperor weapon. As long as you can take them out, you can take Mo Rushi away. Mo family head, are you joking? Hearing Mo Zhaojing's condition, everyone's heart trembled. Meng Fanchen and the rest couldn't help but tremble. Mo Zhaojing was too shameless. This was simply an impossible condition. Even if Nie Tian was a red-robed elder of the Alchemist Guild, it was impossible for him to have a heaven-ranked martial technique and a Tier 9 Emperor weapon. Alright. It's a deal. Just when everyone was shocked by Mo Zhaojing's shamelessness, Nie Tian smiled indifferently and agreed in a clear voice. It's a deal? Mo Zhaojing's cold smile suddenly froze. He looked at Nie Tian with a strange gaze, seriously suspecting that the latter's head was kicked by a donkey. Nie Tian's casual words echoed in everyone's ears like a sudden clap of thunder. Everyone was so shocked that they felt like they were being fried on the outside and tender on the inside. Only one person's reaction was indifferent and there was a smile on his face. That was Gu Yi. He had personally seen Nie Tian throw 2 heaven-ranked martial techniques to Ding Yifan as if he was throwing cabbage. Therefore, it wasn't strange that Nie Tian could take out a Tier 9 Emperor weapon. Commander Zhao. Not caring about everyone's reaction, Nie Tian suddenly shouted. But there was no response for a long time after he shouted. Dan Wu Hall's 7th Commander Zhao Kuo. Nie Tian turned back to look at Zhao Kuo, who was in a daze, and shouted again. Here! Zhao Kuo reacted at this moment. His figure moved and went to Nie Tian's side. Right now, he felt like he was dreaming. Nie Tian had inexplicably turned from a sinner of the Alchemist Guild to a red-robed elder. Just now, he even agreed to Mo Zhaojing's request. All these things made everyone feel dizzy. Commander Zhao, can I trouble you to make a trip to the Alchemist Guild's first branch and find my disciple, Zhang Yifeng? Then, bring a person called Jean de Bao here, Nie Tian said to Zhao Kuo. Zhang Yifeng. When the surrounding people heard Nie Tian's words, they were all stunned. This name had recently gained some fame in Sumi's spiritual capital. He was an alchemist prodigy that had recently risen. Who would have thought that such a figure was actually Nie Tian's disciple? Yes. Zhao Kuo nodded respectfully and said, This subordinate will go now. Nie Tian was already a red-robed elder now. There was nothing wrong with Zhao Kuo calling himself a subordinate. Mo Zhaojing's sharp eyes stared at Nie Tian. He didn't know what the latter was up to. Meng Fanchen, Elder Yi, and the others also looked at Nie Tian suspiciously. They didn't believe that he could take out a Tier 9 Emperor weapon. Zhao Kuo left quickly and returned quickly. In just a few minutes, he brought Zhang Yifeng and Jean de Bao back. Teacher, Zhang Yifeng came to Nie Tian's side and bowed. He was extremely respectful. Meng Fanchen's eyes tensed up. He knew Zhang Yifeng. He was a 21-year-old 4th-grade alchemist with amazing talent in alchemy. He even had the thought of taking Zhang Yifeng as his disciple. He didn't expect that Zhang Yifeng was actually Nie Tian's disciple. Chapter 560. Nie Tian's body trembled slightly as he released his sword, intent to help Jean de Bao stabilize his body. Elder Nie Tian, what is the meaning of this? Mo Zhaojing couldn't help but smile in disdain when he saw that Nie Tian had gone through so much trouble to bring a fatty over. Jean de Bao's appearance wasn't impressive at all. No matter how he looked at him, he looked like a piece of trash. Could it be that this kind of person could take out a heaven-ranked martial technique and a rank 9 emperor weapon? What is this fatty doing? Is he a clown hired by a monkey? The others saw Jean de Bao's clumsy appearance, and said one after another. Their eyes were full of mockery. Jean de Bao didn't care about what the others thought of him. He only looked at Nie Tian and gradually calmed down. Nie Tian ignored Mo Zhaojing, and a scroll suddenly appeared in his hand. Immediately, a surge of pure martial intent was released. Everyone present felt this surge of martial intent, causing their bodies to tremble and their expressions to change dramatically. Heaven-ranked martial technique. Meng Fanshan's divine sense was extremely strong. He immediately sensed that the scroll in Nie Tian's hand was a heaven-ranked martial technique. It's definitely a heaven-ranked martial technique. The other red-clothed elders' expressions changed and their eyes immediately became hot. Oh my God, he really took out a heaven-ranked martial technique. Everyone's eyes trembled as they exclaimed. It really is a heaven-ranked martial technique. Mo Zhaojing's divine sense entered the scroll and his pupils suddenly dilated. If his eyes were any bigger, his eyeballs would have popped out. He took a few deep breaths and his voice began to tremble. Nie Tian, Elder Nie Tian, the scroll in your hand is a heaven-ranked middle-grade martial technique. Who would have thought that Nie Tian would casually take out a heaven-ranked middle-grade martial technique? This made Mo Zhaojing unable to remain calm. It was too exciting. So what if it is? Nie Tian asked back. He then did something that no one expected. He threw the martial technique to Zhao Kuo and said indifferently, Commander Zhao, it was hard for you to bring him here. This martial technique is my reward for your help. Well, the crowd was stunned. Many people opened their mouths wide, but couldn't make a sound. Elder Nie Tian, Zhao Kuo stared at the martial art manual in her hand. She felt as if 1,000,000 rabbits were running around in her heart, and her heart was about to explode. Xiao Chen had only gone to bring Zhang Yifeng and Jean de Bao over, and Nie Tian had given him a heaven-ranked martial art. This move was simply too shocking. The other people in the Dan Martial Hall, including Zhang Tingyin, were all staring blankly. Their hearts were practically filled with 1,000, 10,000 hatred. Nie Tian, what are you doing? Mo Zhaojing was no longer calm. His eyes were filled with coldness. Everyone thought that the martial arts manual in Nie Tian's hand was for Mo Zhaojing, but they didn't expect that he would directly give it to Zhao Kuo. This was undoubtedly a slap to the Mo family's face. Mo family head, what I do has nothing to do with you. Nie Tian smiled faintly. Then, another scroll appeared in his hand. He tossed it to Mo Zhaojing and said in a cold voice, Isn't it just a heaven-ranked martial technique? I have plenty of them. Everyone present felt the surging martial intent once again and immediately understood that Nie Tian had taken out another heaven-ranked martial technique. Everyone's face stiffened, and their eyes became dull. Who exactly was Nie Tian? Where did he get so many heaven-ranked martial techniques from? Mo Zhaojing looked at the martial technique in his hand and confirmed that it was undoubtedly a heaven-ranked martial technique. A hint of passion flashed in his eyes, but it immediately turned into anger. Nie Tian first gave Zhao Kuo a heaven-ranked martial technique, and then he gave Mo Zhaojing another one. This was simply like giving cabbages to Mo Zhaojing. This made Mo Zhaojing feel extremely unbalanced. He had a feeling that he was being played like a dog. Nie Tian had given the Mo family a resounding slap in the face in front of everyone. However, Mo Zhaojing could only suffer in silence. What about a Tier 9 Emperor artifact? Mo Zhaojing clenched his teeth and asked. Even if Nie Tian had a heaven-ranked martial technique, it didn't mean that he had a Tier 9 Emperor artifact. There were no Tier 9 blacksmiths in the 3,000 small worlds, so where would he get a Tier 9 Emperor artifact? Nie Tian looked at Jean de Bao and said directly, De Bao, Take out the Emperor artifact in your hand. Nie Tian obtained 5 Tier 9 Emperor artifacts from the Bloody Massacre ancient tomb. The Star Soul Tablet was in his body, the Blue Phoenix Vine was in Rui Qianyu's hands, and the Li Dragon Cauldron, Purple Wind Jade Sword, and Greedy Wolf Snake Flame Spear were in Jean de Bao's hands. Nie Tian gave the 3 Tier 9 Emperor artifacts to Jean de Bao because he wanted him to use the 3,000 demonic seals to suppress the 3 Emperor artifacts to the level of a Tier 7 Spirit artifact. Only Heavenly Evolution Realm and above martial artists dared to use Tier 9 Emperor artifact. Martial artists below the Heavenly Evolution Realm would not be able to withstand the power of the Emperor artifact. All right. Jean de Bao agreed and took out all 3 Emperor artifacts. He looked at Nie Tian helplessly and said, "Boss, I only have 3 Emperor artifacts now. I've given the rest to the servants." The Li Dragon Cauldron, Purple Wind Jade Sword, and Greedy Wolf Snake Flame Spear shone brightly as soon as the 3 Emperor artifacts appeared. 7-colored divine light flowed in the void, and an ancient but powerful aura spread out for thousands of meters. This scene caused everyone to be dumbfounded, and their hearts beat wildly. The light released by the 3 Emperor weapons caused people's hearts to palpitate because this light was the legendary Emperor Light. Emperor Light. It's really Emperor Light. Meng Fanchen was the first to react. He could no longer keep his cool and shouted. Emperor Light was a divine light that only a Tier 9 spirit artifact could release. No wonder Meng Fanchen was so excited. Isn't it just a Tier 9 Emperor artifact? Do you have to be so excited? It must have been hard for you to live for so long. You've really never seen the world. Jean de Bao didn't know Meng Fanchen's identity and sneered. He then looked at Nie Tian and said, "Boss, you asked me to take out these spirit artifacts. Are you going to reward them to a servant?" One had to admit that Jean de Bao was very smart. He was even better than Nie Tian when it came to acting cool. Nie Tian glanced at Emo Zhaojing. Jean de Bao immediately understood and raised his brows. He said with a smirk, "Hey you. Which one do you want? Say it yourself." Jean de Bao was very arrogant at this time. He simply treated Emo Zhaojing as a servant and ordered him around. Emo Zhaojing looked at Jean de Bao and was speechless for a few seconds. How could he have imagined that such an unprepossessing fatty would actually be able to casually take out 3 Tier 9 Emperor artifacts? I want that Snake Flame Spear." Emo Zhaojing didn't even notice Jean de Bao's tone and excitedly pointed at the Greedy Wolf Snake Flame Spear. Jean de Bao's fat face trembled a bit. He then laughed and said, "Greedy Wolf Snake Flame Spear. You're very good at choosing. Unfortunately, it won't do. This Snake Flame Spear belongs to me. You can choose something else." Emo Zhaojing frowned and suppressed his anger. He pointed at the Violet Wind Blue Sword and said, "Then I want this sword." The Greedy Wolf Snake Flame Spear wasn't good, but the Violet Wind Blue Sword was also not bad. Jean de Bao glanced at him and smiled. The Violet Wind Blue Sword is also not bad, but it still won't do. This sword belongs to Ninth Sister. I can't give it to you. You should take the Leaving Dragon Cauldron. With that, Jean de Bao put away the Greedy Wolf Snake Flame Spear and the Violet Wind Blue Sword, leaving only the Leaving Dragon Cauldron carved with dragon patterns. "Little fatty, you're messing with me." At this time, Emo Zhaojing finally realized that Jean de Bao was completely messing with him. "Take it or leave it. It would be a mistake to give you the Leaving Dragon Cauldron." Jean de Bao did not know who Emo Zhaojing was. He rolled his eyes and said in a bad mood. Chapter 561. Emo Zhaojing was teased by Jean de Bao and was furious. He suddenly attacked. The terrifying strength of a warrior at the peak of the spirit wheel stage exploded. Endless energy fell and formed a sharp claw in the air. So strong. Everyone felt a huge pressure pressing down on them, and the air turned into sharp wind blades. Emo Zhaojing didn't dare to kill Nie Tian, but he definitely dared to kill Jean de Bao. Jean de Bao was shrouded by an invisible force and his face turned pale. in front of a warrior at the spirit wheel stage. He couldn't resist at all. Stop! At this moment, a shout was heard and a white light appeared, protecting Jean de Bao in the center. Bang! With a loud bang, Mo Zhaojing's attack landed, causing the air to tremble. The white light barrier around Jean de Bao's body cracked and crumbled. Waves of qi spread out, and everyone felt their bodies tremble. Many people swayed and almost fell down. A head-on collision between a warrior at the peak of the spirit wheel stage, even if it was just the aftershock, was not something an ordinary warrior could withstand. Meng Fanchen, you are indeed powerful. Nie Tian protected Mo Rushi and looked at Meng Fanchen. He was the one who saved Jean de Bao. Meng Fanchen was able to block Mo Zhaojing's attack, and was not at a disadvantage. It was enough to show that his strength was similar to Mo Zhaojing's. Yuan Tian Gang Qi. Mo Zhaojing looked at Meng Fanchen in surprise after his attack was blocked. He then smiled and said, President Meng, I didn't expect your Yuan Tian tactic to have reached such a level. You can actually condense Yuan Tian Gang Qi. I admire you. Mo Zhaojing's admiration showed his unwillingness and sarcasm at the same time. Mo family head, you're one of the strongest cultivators in the 3,000 small world. It doesn't seem appropriate for you to kill a young man in front of so many people. Meng Fanchen replied indifferently. There was a hint of jealousy in his tone. Everyone looked at Mo Zhaojing with a strange expression. With his status and strength, it was indeed inappropriate for him to attack Jean de Bao. Mo Zhaojing was also confused by Jean de Bao's anger. Feeling everyone's burning gazes, he couldn't help but blush. Coldly, he said, This brat teased me, I was angry and impulsively attacked. Under the protection of Yuan Tian Gang Qi, Jean de Bao was not injured, but he was scared half to death. His whole body was drenched in cold sweat, and his clothes were soaked. What an impulsive attack! Nie Tianling smiled and said, Mo clan head, you only want a 9th-tier Emperor artifact. You didn't say what kind of 9th-tier Emperor artifact it is. Even if I give you the Leaving Dragon Cauldron, it can be considered as me fulfilling my conditions. Mo Zhaojing's expression was cold and tense. If Nie Tian really gave him the Leaving Dragon Cauldron, he really couldn't say anything. However, the Leaving Dragon Cauldron was useless to Mo Zhaojing or the Mo family. The Mo clan did not have any high-level alchemists, nor did they have any blacksmith. In the Mo clan, the Leaving Dragon Cauldron could only be viewed as a painting. Mo family head, do you really want the greedy wolf snake flame spear? Nie Tian nodded at Jean de Bao, who took out the greedy wolf snake flame spear again. You are really willing to give it to me? Mo Zhaojing saw the greedy wolf snake flame spear and asked excitedly with an unconcealable passion in his eyes. Mo family head, if you want the greedy wolf snake flame spear, then apologize to my friend, Nie Tian said coldly. Apologize? Mo Zhaojing was startled and suspected that he had heard wrongly. He was the Mo family head of one of the 4 major families. How could he casually apologize to someone? Without hesitation, he blurted out, Impossible! Mo Zhaojing was also a big shot. If he apologized to Jean de Bao in front of so many people, how could he and the Mo clan have any face left? All right, the Leaving Dragon Cauldron is yours. Nie Tian's face was determined. With a wave of his hand, he threw the Leaving Dragon Cauldron over. Mo Zhaojing looked at the dragon marking pill cauldron in front of him and his face stiffened in pain. He was thinking and weighing the pros and cons. Mo family head, goodbye. Nie Tian didn't give Mo Zhaojing any time to think. He turned around and prepared to leave with Mo Rushi. Wait! Just as Nie Tian turned around, Mo Zhaojing immediately became anxious and blurted out, I apologize. As soon as the words left his mouth, everyone was shocked and looked at Mo Zhaojing in astonishment. The temptation of a rank 9 Emperor weapon was too great. Even Mo Zhaojing was forced to bow his head. The Leaving Dragon Cauldron was useless to him. If he sold it, it would be a pity to throw it away. What Emo Zhaojing wanted the most was the greedy wolf snake flame spear. He could smell the fire attribute in it, which was the same as his Yuan spirit. As long as he could get it, his battle power would increase by a level. In the end, he couldn't resist the temptation of a rank 9 Emperor weapon and chose to apologize. All right, apologize. Nie Tian's mouth twitched. He had already expected this result. Under countless astonished gazes, Emo Zhaojing took 2 steps towards Jean de Bao. His body trembled and he finally bowed slightly. He gritted his teeth and said, "Young master, I made a mistake and almost hurt you. Please forgive me." Jean de Bao glanced at Emo Zhaojing and chuckled. "Your voice was too soft, I couldn't hear you." Emo Zhaojing's eyes flickered and a cold intent was released, but it quickly disappeared. "Emo clan leader, since you have already lowered your head, why don't you lower your head more sincerely?" Nie Tian's voice was full of mockery. Emo Zhaojing's heart felt like it was blocked by a ball of cotton. He couldn't swallow it or spit it out. But in front of everyone, he had already promised to admit his mistake. Going back on his words now would make him look even more petty. Helplessly, Emo Zhaojing let out a long breath and said loudly, "I made a mistake, please forgive me." Jean de Bao was startled, then he smiled and said, all right. Seeing that you are so sincere, I will forgive you. But don't do it again. If there is a next time, be careful of your head." Everyone was stunned. They widened their eyes and stared at Jean de Bao, unable to react for a long time. Jean de Bao's tone was like he was talking to a servant. It was a bit too arrogant. A cold intent flashed in Emo Zhaojing's eyes. He forcefully suppressed his anger and ignored Jean de Bao. "For you." Nie Tian did not say much and directly threw the greedy wolf snake flame spear to Emo Zhaojing. At this moment, Emo Zhaojing was definitely on the verge of exploding. If he was provoked again, he might really go crazy. Emo Zhaojing caught the snake spear and his eyes finally showed a hint of joy. Although the Emo clan had lost face today, it was not a loss to be able to obtain a heaven-ranked martial technique and a rank 9 Emperor weapon. President Meng, goodbye. After obtaining the greedy wolf snake flame spear, Emo Zhaojing was not willing to stay any longer. He said goodbye to Meng Fanchen and left. Emo Yu glared at Nie Tian hatefully. If looks could kill, Nie Tian would have already been torn to pieces by him. At this moment, Emo Yu's hatred for Nie Tian had reached an unbearable limit. However, he did not dare to act rashly. This kind of feeling made him go crazy. Nie Tian, just you wait and see. After leaving this sentence, Emo Yu left angrily. The Emo clan followed him and left. Nie Tian looked at the backs of Emo Yu and the others. The corner of his mouth curled up slightly. He opened his arms and hugged Emo Rushi tightly. Chapter 562. With the departure of the Emo family, the big show came to an end. But anyone could see that the grievances between Nie Tian and the Emo family had already been formed, and there was bound to be a big storm coming. Nie Tian was already a red-robed elder, so Meng Fanchen and Gu Yi discussed and decided to let him live with Gu Yi for the time being before choosing a mansion for Nie Tian. Since Nie Tian was already a red-robed elder, Meng Fanchen and Gu Yi discussed and decided to let him live with Gu Yi for the time being before choosing a mansion for Nie Tian. This time, Nie Tian's limelight was a little too big. First he killed Ying Rui, then he became a red-robed elder, then he went against the Emo family and even forced Emo Zhaojing to admit his mistake. Each of these events was enough to shake the entire Shumi spirit capital. The tallest tree in the forest would be destroyed by the wind. Nie Tian certainly understood this, so he planned to keep a low profile for the next period of time. Soon, Nie Tian and the others arrived at Gu Yi's mansion. Qiu Shan and the others were already waiting. Big brother Nie Tian. Seeing Nie Tian again, Nyero was very happy and ran over, but when she saw Nie Tian and Emo Rushi holding hands, she pouted and shouted at Emo Rushi, "Who are you? You're not allowed to hold big brother Nie Tian's hand." Although Nyeyuro and Emorushi had both been in Emoyang City before, the two had never met, and Emorushi's appearance had changed a little, so of course Nyeyuro didn't recognize her. Ninth sister, she's your future sister-in-law, Nye Tian laughed and said shamelessly. Emorushi's pretty face blushed as she pulled away Nye Tian's hand and stepped forward. You're Nyeyuro, right? Nyeyuro's big eyes flashed as she asked, How did you know? Emorushi bent down and whispered something into Nyeyuro's ear, causing the latter to giggle. Nye Tian didn't bother with them and allowed them to return to their rooms while he, Gu Yi, Yang Kai, Elder Yi, and the others went to the meeting hall. Aside from Nye Tian and the others, Yang Kai and Elder Yi also arrived at the Gu residence. Brother Nye, you really don't give up until you die. You've just arrived at Sumi Spirit Capital and you've already caused such a huge commotion. I reckon that everyone in Sumi Spirit Capital knows you now. Gu Yi took a sip of tea and said half-jokingly, I didn't want to make things so big. Nye Tian smiled bitterly. He originally wanted to keep a low profile, but unfortunately, he was the only glowing firefly in the dark night. He couldn't keep a low profile even if he wanted to. Mr. Nye, Mo Zhaojing is very strong, but he is narrow-minded. You made the Mo family lose face in front of everyone, so he definitely won't let this go. You have to be careful from now on. Elder Yi reminded Nye Tian. He had dealt with Mo Zhaojing when he was young and knew that the latter was a vengeful person. This time, Nye Tian publicly humiliated him, so he definitely wouldn't let Nye Tian off. I heard that the Mo family's patriarch is the most ruthless person among the 4 patriarchs of the 4 worlds. Elder Nye has offended him, so you must be careful in the future. Yang Kai also said. Nye Tian nodded. Although he had only met Mo Zhaojing once, he could tell from his eyes and actions that this person was not someone easy to get along with. Right. Nye Tian suddenly thought of something. He handed a space bag to Yang Kai and said, Old Yang, this is the 6 Yang extremities. You only need to fuse and refine the herbs into 6 Yang spirit liquid. Then, let Yang Zixiao take a medicinal bath. Drip 3 drops at a time, 3 times a day. After 3 months, the 100 void qi in his body will be suppressed. Yang Kai took the space bag gratefully. He had some doubts about Nye Tian before, but now he trusted him very much. At the same time, in the Mo family's conference hall, Mo Zhaojing sat on the main seat with a gloomy face. He didn't say a word, but an invisible pressure was released. Everyone in the hall felt a heavy pressure. Father, please let the Mo family's dark guards kill Nye Tian. Mou was the first to lose his cool. His eyes were bloodshot as he gritted his teeth and roared. Mou, don't be impulsive. The Mo family's first elder, Mo Xing, said in a deep voice, Nye Tian's current identity is no small matter. He is the Alchemist Guild's red-clothed elder. Killing him now is tantamount to drawing fire to yourself. This matter needs to be considered at length. What do you need to consider at length? Mou was about to go crazy. He roared, when has our Mo family suffered this kind of sullenness? Nye Tian must pay the price. Enough! Mo Zhaojing suddenly roared. A trace of coldness flashed through his eyes as he said, We can't kill Nye Tian now. He just had a conflict with the Mo family. If we kill him now, the Mo family will be the prime suspect. Father, then what do you think we should do? Mou saw Mo Zhaojing's gloomy face and the sneer on his lip. It was obvious that he had a better way to take revenge. Mo Zhaojing's eyes flashed coldly as he said, Although I can't kill Nye Tian, killing a few traitors who betrayed the Mo family is still a piece of cake. Master, you mean? Mo Xing suddenly thought of something and his face palpitated. Kill Mo Tai. Mo Zhaojing squeezed out 3 words from his teeth as a cold smile flashed on his face. He didn't dare to kill Nye Tian, but he wanted to kill Rushi's father, Mo Tai, to take revenge on Nye Tian. Mo Zhaojing had promised Nye Tian that he would let Rushi and her clansmen go. However, He went back on his words. From this, it could be seen that this Mo family's master was a villain who did not keep his word. All right. I will ask Mo Feng to do this. Mo Xing agreed and left directly. After a while, Mo Feng came to Mo Xing. Master's order, kill Mo Tai. Mo Xing said directly without any nonsense. Mo Feng was stunned for a second. Then, he smiled and nodded heavily. Kill Mo Tai. You must do it cleanly. Don't let anyone know that it was the Mo family's doing. Mo Xing said. Yes. Don't worry, Great Elder. I will do it well. Mo Feng agreed and left immediately. His hatred for Nie Tian was not any weaker than Mo Yu's. If he could kill Mo Tai, it would relieve the hatred in his heart. In a clean and tidy room, everything was brand new. A beautiful figure was sitting on the bed, staring at the door. No one knew what she was thinking. Creak. At this time, the door was pushed open. Nie Tian walked in. Seeing Mo Rushi's dazed expression, he smiled faintly and said, Mo Rushi, are you thinking of me? Mo Rushi shook her head slightly. She looked at Nie Tian and said seriously, Nie Tian, thank you. Nie Tian walked over and sat next to Mo Rushi. He stretched out his arm and put it on her shoulder. He said solemnly, Mo Rushi, you are not allowed to say thank you to me in the future. Mo Rushi's breathtakingly beautiful eyes blinked and her body trembled. She felt powerless and couldn't help but lean against his broad chest. Nie Tian hugged her even tighter. He slowly lowered his head and got closer to the beautiful face in his arms. Mo Rushi suddenly sensed something, and her pretty face flushed red. Her heart was pounding, but she finally mustered up the courage to raise her head. Chapter 563. In the room, after an unknown amount of time, the two figures finally separated. Nie Tian moved his body slightly and saw Mo Rushi's bashful face. A naughty smile appeared on his face, but it was very bright and very sweet. Mo Rushi saw Nie Tian's naughty smile, and the bashfulness on her face deepened. She looked a little flustered and couldn't help but lower her head, not daring to look at his eyes. She subconsciously moved slightly, distancing herself from Nie Tian. Her bashful appearance was extremely cute. Nie Tian was also a little nervous. In fact, this was his first kiss. Although he was the #1 war god in the heaven realm in his previous life, he only dated Luo Xian, and the latter betrayed him and even killed him. He couldn't bear to look back on his previous life, but in this life, Nie Tian must live a wonderful life. Mo Rushi, you rest, I'm leaving. Nie Tian stood up and gently stroked Mo Rushi's fiery red hair. He said this and turned to leave. Mo Rushi lowered her head and answered. Only after Nie Tian had left for a long time did she raise her head again. She propped her chin up with her hands, and her extremely beautiful face carried a touch of soul-stirring shyness. Her clear eyes flickered, as if she was thinking of something. In the end, her moving lips slightly trembled, and she gently smiled. It was a peerless beauty. Bang! At this time, the room's door was suddenly opened, and Nie Tian barged in again. Nie Tian, why are you back? Mo Rushi nervously stopped smiling, as if she was afraid of being seen by Nie Tian. Nie Tian had a nervous look on his face as he asked, Where is Lord Mo Tai? Mo Rushi was stunned for a moment and replied, Father was sent to Ning City to take care of the family's affairs. What's wrong? Oh no. Nie Tian's face darkened, and he suddenly had an ominous premonition. When he was talking to Gu Yi and the others, he didn't think much about it. Just now, when he suddenly thought of Mo Rushi's father, he had some guesses in his heart. With Mo Zhaojing's vengeful personality, he would definitely not give up. If he couldn't do anything to Nie Tian, he would target someone else. Therefore, Mo Tai might be in danger. Although Mo Zhaojing had promised to let Mo Rushi and her family go, it was highly likely that he would go back on his word. Killing Mo Tai was a very easy thing to do. At that time, the Mo clan could just push the blame to someone else. Thinking of this, Nie Tian's face immediately became gloomy. "Nie Tian, is the patriarch going to kill my father?" Emo Rushi immediately walked over and asked in panic when she saw Nie Tian's expression. "Don't worry, I won't let them succeed." Nie Tian solemnly nodded. A resolute look flickered in his eyes as he said, "Let's go to Tranquil City." Tranquil City was an ancient city at the border of the Nanshan region. It had a long history and was said to have existed since 10,000 years ago. This ancient city was majestic and vast. Standing in the boundless desert, it was like a lonely giant that was isolated from the rest of the world. 3 days later, outside of Tranquil City, in the middle of the flying yellow sand, 3 figures appeared. They were Nie Tian, Emo Rushi, and Qiu Shan. Nie Tian originally wanted to bring Elder Yi along, but after thinking about it again and again, he only brought Qiu Shan. Elder Ye's strength was too strong. If he came with them, it would be too big of a target. This time, they only came to Tranquil City to save Emo Tai. The smaller the target, the better. Nie Tian didn't want Emo Rushi to come along, but the latter insisted. So, Nie Tian had no choice but to let her come along. Mr. Nie, although Tranquil City is called Tranquil City, it is not peaceful inside. This is the most ancient city at the border of the Nanshan region. Rumor has it that if we cross the desolate ancient desert, we can reach the territory of the demon race. Qiu Shan looked at the distant Tranquil City and said to Nie Tian. Nie Tian looked at the vast ancient city standing in the middle of the boundless desert and couldn't help but shake his head. Emo Tai was sent to this desolate place. It was simply like an exile. It was much more miserable than when he was in Moyang City. When Emo Tai told the Emo family about Emo Rushi's awakening of a rank 9 origin spirit, he thought that he could return to the Emo family. He didn't expect that he would be exiled to Tranquil City. This kind of difference in treatment really made people sigh. "Let's enter the city." Nie Tian nodded. His figure flashed, and he ran towards the city gate. The Sumeru Grand Meeting would start in 20 days. Nie Tian had to hurry back to Sumi spiritual capital before the Grand Meeting started. Stepping into Tranquil City, Nie Tian and the others went straight to a restaurant. They were going to rest for a while and inquire about Emo Tai's news. Emo Rushi only knew that Emo Tai was in Tranquil City, but she didn't know where he was or what he was doing. Entering the restaurant, Nie Tian found that every place was full. Only the most central seat was empty. He didn't think too much and directly sat down. At this moment, a tyrannical figure suddenly appeared. A gloomy and cold evil chi spread out. What a cold evil chi! Everyone's heart trembled. They looked at the figure and saw that it was a warrior in his prime. He was dressed in brocade clothes. The man looked to be in his 30s or 40s. He had a fierce face and a bloody evil chi surged from his body. It was as if he had just walked out of a bloody battlefield. 9th stage true element realm. Nie Tian looked at the man and couldn't help but be surprised. He didn't expect this man to be so strong. The arrival of this man made the entire restaurant fall into a deathly silence. Everyone's eyes were focused on him. There was a deep fear in their eyes. "It's Lord Ning. Make way." At this time, a waiter of the restaurant shouted and ran to the man's side. "Brother, who is this man? He's so domineering." Nie Tian smiled faintly and asked the person next to him. The man looked back at Nie Tian and said unhappily, "You don't even know who Lord Ning is? You really haven't seen the world. Let me tell you, Lord Ning is the #1 true disciple of Master Dongfang Yu of the Transformation God sect, the #1 sect in the southern mountain region. You don't even know who he is, and you still dare to come to Peaceful City?" Nie Tian smiled faintly and didn't know what to say. Before coming to Peaceful City, he had asked around and found out that the biggest sect in the vicinity was the Transformation God sect. The Transformation God sect was the top sect in the southern mountain region. Only the Qiankuan Palace could be compared to it. More importantly, the Transformation God sect's Master Dongfang Yu had a blood feud with Qiu Shan. Qiu Shan's Yuan Meridian was destroyed by Dongfang Yu. So far, Qiu Shan didn't know why Dongfang Yu did this. Before coming here, Nie Tian was worried that he would run into someone from the Transformation God sect. Who would have thought that he would run into Dongfang Yu's number one true disciple as soon as he arrived? Qiu Shan. Nie Tian noticed that Qiu Shan was a little agitated, so he reminded him. Qiu Shan nodded solemnly and restrained his aura. It's over. At this time, the man next to Nie Tian suddenly let out a strange cry. He was so scared that he trembled and directly sat on the ground. What's going on? Nie Tian looked at the man with a puzzled expression. They were just talking nicely a moment ago. Why was he so scared all of a sudden? This is Lord Ning's seat. The man jumped to his feet and retreated in fear. Chapter 564. Ning Wudao walked over step by step. With every step he took, the bloody aura in the air became thicker. This person was like a bloody butcher's knife. Just by standing there, people could smell the pungent smell of blood. Get lost! Ning Wudao strode over and spat out a word without even looking at Nie Tian. He was extremely arrogant. Bang! Qiu Shan slammed the table and stood up. His whole body was filled with anger. Let's go to another place. Nie Tian immediately stood up and put a hand on Qiu Shan. He shook his head slightly, signaling the latter not to be impulsive. This was in Ning City. It was very close to the God Transformation sect. If they fought here, Nie Tian and the others would not be able to get any benefit. Moreover, Nie Tian's purpose this time was to save people. It was not appropriate to expose his identity. At least you know what's good for you. Ning Wudao smiled contemptuously. His eyes were filled with extreme contempt. Nie Tian and the others stood up. Just as they were about to leave, Ning Wudao stretched out his arm and blocked their way. He sized up Mo Rushi and said with a smile, I told you two to get lost. This woman has to stay with me. What a beautiful woman! Hearing Ning Wudao's words, everyone could not help but look at Mo Rushi. Only then did they notice that the latter was a peerless beauty. When Mo Rushi entered the restaurant just now, she kept her head down and did not attract the attention of the crowd. At this moment, the crowd was paying attention to her. Countless pairs of eyes could not move away. Mo Rushi was simply too beautiful, especially with her scarlet hair, which made her look even more enchanting. Nie Tian's expression suddenly froze. His whole body released a cold, murderous intent. Mo Rushi was Nie Tian's reverse scale. Anyone who touched it would die. Nie Tian's lips curled into a cold smile. He felt helpless. He did not want to cause unnecessary trouble, but trouble came to him. He had no other choice. There was only one thing he could do, kill. A small shrimp wants to fight a dragon? Ning Wudao sneered. He did not put Nie Tian in his eyes at all. He was the first true disciple of the Transformation God sect's sect master, Dongfang Yu. His strength had already reached the 9th stage of true element. In the entire peaceful city, no one dared to disobey him. They're about to make their move. The crowd's hearts trembled, and they subconsciously retreated. Io, what are the two of you doing? Could it be that you intend to destroy my restaurant? Right at this moment, an enchanting voice resounded, and then an enchanting figure appeared. This was a charming and seductive woman wearing a pink dress. Her figure was tall and slender, and her curves were curvaceous. Her chest was full to the point of exploding, and her red lips were scorching hot. She was exceptionally charming. Aoki Lily. When Nie Tian heard this voice, it was very familiar. He turned around and saw that it was indeed someone he knew. When Aokiki Lily saw Nie Tian, she was slightly taken aback. She was clearly very surprised. However, she concealed her surprise very well. She giggled and said in a sweet voice, Sir Ning, I saw everything that happened just now. It's just a misunderstanding. This young master is new here, and he doesn't know that it's Sir Ning's seat. I'm here to apologize to Sir Ning. I hope that Sir Ning can give me face and resolve this small matter. Miss Lily. Ning Wudao stared at Aokiki Lily obscenely, and his saliva almost flowed out. However, he was not stupid. Sensing the change in Aokiki Lily's expression, he could not help but glance at Nie Tian and said in his heart, "Who is this guy? Even the eldest daughter of the Diyuan Chamber of Commerce is pleading for him." Although Yuan-E restaurant was opened by the Diyuan Chamber of Commerce, Aokiki Lily obviously would not plead for an ordinary customer. Ning Wudao grinned and said, "Miss Lily, since you've spoken, I can't turn you down. How about this? As long as this guy kneels down and kowtows to me 3 times to admit his mistake, then destroys his own primordial meridians, and asks the red-haired beauty beside him to accompany me for 10 days, I'll spare his life. What do you think?" As soon as he finished speaking, someone behind him stood up and flattered, "Sir Ning is too kind and benevolent. This guy is really lucky." Yes, Sir Ning is really a magnanimous person," the others echoed. Aokiki Lily's beautiful eyes turned cold, and an unconcealable anger appeared on her pretty face. Ning Wudao's words were completely toying with her. However, at this moment, Nie Tian could not help but laugh. He wanted to hold it back, but he could not. Nie Tian thought that Wang Haorui, Mou, and the others that he had met were arrogant enough. Who knew that compared to this guy in front of him, they were simply insignificant. There was really no one else who could act like this. The smile on Nie Tian's mouth slowly stiffened, and his eyes suddenly became cold. Aokiki Lily knew that Nie Tian was going to kill Ning Wudao. She was frightened and hurriedly transmitted her voice to Nie Tian. "Nie Tian City Lord, Ning Wudao is the Hall Master of the White Tiger Hall of the Transformation God Sect. All the disciples of the White Tiger Hall of the Transformation God Sect are in Anning City. You must not kill him." Just now, Aokiki Lily pleaded for mercy because she was afraid that Nie Tian would kill Ning Wudao on impulse. The Transformation God Sect was the top sect in the Nanshan region, and its strength was more terrifying than a first-rate empire. Its subordinate, the White Tiger Hall, was even more powerful than ordinary sections. Nie Tian ignored Aokiki Lily's warning. Ning Wudao had blasphemed Mo Rushi. Today, even if the sect master of the Transformation God Sect, Dongfang Yu, came in person, Ning Wudao must die. "Oh, brat, it seems that you don't appreciate my kindness." Ning Wudao sensed Nie Tian's killing intent and smiled cold. He became even more arrogant and shouted, "Since you insist on dying, I beg you." Before Ning Wudao could finish, Nie Tian roared angrily. A terrifying sword will burst out from his body. The surrounding tables couldn't withstand the pressure of the sword will and were crushed into pieces. As the angry voice fell, the sword will in the space was extremely domineering. So strong. The crowd was shocked and someone exclaimed. No one expected that such an ordinary young man could burst out such a terrifying strength in an instant. Boom! He stabbed with his sword. The sword will was extremely sharp, and there was an ear-piercing whistling sound in the air. A vigorous sword shadow appeared and pressed down on Ning Wudao. "This brat is so strong. He actually dared to attack Lord Ning directly." The crowd exclaimed. Their eyes were wide open, and they wanted to see what would happen to Nie Tian next. Although everyone admitted that Nie Tian was strong, they were certain that Nie Tian couldn't be a match for Ning Wudao. Ning Wudao was the first true disciple of the Transformation God Sect, and his strength had reached the 9th tier of true element. Unless Nie Tian was an expert in the spirit wheel realm, he would only be slaughtered. Nie Tian looked like he was only 17 or 18 years old. At this age, no matter how strong he was, he couldn't be an expert in the spirit wheel realm. Chapter 565. As the blood-red shield appeared, a ghostly-faced shadow that was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws vaguely appeared around Ning Wudao, releasing a strong bloody aura. Nie Tianling glanced at the blood-colored shield around Ning Wudao. His face was calm and expressionless. He twitched the corner of his mouth and spat out a word, "Kill!" As the cold voice fell, the brilliance of the sword became dazzling. The mighty sword essence was like an invisible giant net that wrapped around Ning Wudao. A pure white sword light shot out, pierced through the void, and went straight for Ning Wudao. Boom! The sword essence was shocking. As it slashed down, there was a loud roar in the void. A violent sword essence bloomed in the air, almost capable of destroying everything. Crack! The next moment, a crisp sound was heard. The blood-colored shield around Ning Wudao had a crack on it. In an instant, it cracked like a spider web, and then it collapsed uncontrollably. Ning Wudao's pupils suddenly shrank, his heart trembled violently, and his face became extremely ugly. He did not expect that Nie Tian could actually break his blood transformation shield. He cultivated the second martial art technique in the Transformation God sect, second only to the Transformation God technique, the blood transformation technique. At this time, he had already cultivated the blood transformation technique to the 5th stage. The blood transformation shield was strong enough to withstand a head-on attack from a level 9 true element warrior, but now it was broken by a level 3 true element warrior. How could he not be surprised? At this time, Nie Tian was already at the level 3 true element. His body had awakened the power of 800 million stars. In addition to the power of the Proud Sword Essence and the Star Soul Sword Essence, the combination of the two sword essences was enough for him to compete with any warrior below the Spirit Wheel Realm. However, if he encountered a Spirit Wheel Realm warrior, Nie Tian could not fight him head-on. He had to rely on the power of the rank 4 Star Soul. Ning Wudao was only at the level 9 true element. Although it was only one stage away from the Spirit Wheel Realm, the huge gap between them was like heaven and earth. Bang! With a muffled sound, Ning Wudao was hit by the sword and directly smashed to the ground. The ebony floor was smashed into pieces. Everyone widened their eyes and looked at the scene in front of them in disbelief. One sword, with just one sword, Nie Tian directly hit Ning Wudao and sent him flying. How was this possible? He was clearly only at the level 3 true element. Pooh! Ning Wudao quickly got up and spat out a mouthful of blood. His expression was extremely ugly. How could he have imagined that the young man in front of him, who he didn't even bother to look at, would have such a terrifying combat strength? You are Dong Feng Yu's disciple? Nie Tian took a step forward. His cold eyes were like steel needles which made Ning Wudao uncomfortable. Ning Wudao was slightly stunned. He wiped off the blood at the corner of his mouth and revealed a ferocious expression. He shouted, "I am the chief disciple of the sect master. How dare you hurt me? The transformed God sect will never forgive you." Nie Tianling laughed. His expression was extremely vicious as he said indifferently, "You were so arrogant just now, and now you're bringing up the transformation sect. Are all Dongfang Yu's disciples this trash? Dongfang Du is a scum, and so are you. You know, young sect master?" Ning Wudao was stunned when he heard Nie Tian mention Dongfang Du. "If you want to know, go to the other side and ask him yourself." Nie Tianling sneered. His whole body erupted with sword essence once again. His figure moved and rushed towards Ning Wudao. It was as if his whole body had become one with the sword. A gorgeous sword light flashed, and a terrifying sword essence completely broke out. "Brat, do you really think I am afraid of you?" Ning Wudao roared. The blood-dissolving secret art in his body was running crazily. Blood-colored yuan force constantly gushed out, covering the space with a layer of scarlet blood. Blood-dissolving hand. As the roar faded, the scarlet blood in the air condensed into a huge scarlet palm. Like a mountain, it pressed towards Nie Tian. Nie Tian felt the surging momentum whistling towards him, but his face didn't change at all. His figure was like a sword, and the overbearing and sharp sword light bloomed in the air. The scarlet blood palm in the air suddenly swayed, and then stopped in the air. Extreme Netherworld kill. At this moment, Nie Tian's cold voice sounded. The momentum of his body suddenly increased, and the astral soul on the astral soul tablet turned into a ray of light. Endless astral energy surged out like a river bursting its bank. Dazzling starlight appeared in the space, and a bright light flickered and shot out. Pooh! A soft sound was heard. Ning Wudao's body swayed, and his eyes suddenly widened. He subconsciously raised both his hands, but his head suddenly flew up. Instantly, blood gushed out, and the scene was extremely bloody. The extreme netherworld kill, the power of a fourth-grade astral soul erupted, and Ning Wudao died on the spot. The face of the head that fell to the ground was filled with horror, surprise, regret, despair, and pain. Originally, Nie Tian didn't want to make a move. It was he who forced Nie Tian to make a move. He really deserved it. The bloody and horrifying scene made the crowd fall silent. Everyone's expression was petrified, and their faces were filled with horror as they stared at the headless corpse on the ground. Dead. Ning Wudao, the #1 disciple of the God Transformation sect, died just like that. After a few seconds, astonished voices sounded from the crowd. Countless pairs of eyes stared at Ning Wudao's corpse in disbelief. Ning Wudao, who was at the 9th level of True Element level, was actually killed by Nie Tian in a single move. This result was too dramatic, and it felt extremely unreal. Courting death. Nie Tianling spat out these two words coldly, not even looking at Ning Wudao. He used his fourth-grade astral soul in order to quickly end the battle. If he wasted too much time on Ning Wudao, it would attract a large number of people from the God Transformation sect, and that would be terrible. At this moment, among the crowd, there were a few figures quietly moving, wanting to leave the Origin restaurant. "Are you trying to tip them off?" Nie Tianling smiled coldly. His body trembled, and several rays of sword intent turned into sharp sword shadows, shooting out. Those few figures directly fell to the ground, dead on the spot. Seeing this scene, the crowd immediately stiffened, not daring to move. Nie Tian's strength was too terrifying. Even Ning Wudao couldn't withstand a single move from him, so how could the others dare to act rashly? Aoki Lily was stunned for a moment, and her expression finally softened. She walked to Nie Tian's side and said in a low voice, "Nie Tian City Lord, let's go in and talk. Qiushan, keep an eye on everyone. If anyone dares to take even half a step out of the restaurant, kill them." Nie Tian said to Qiushan, then followed Aoki Lily to the second floor. Qiushan nodded slightly. His body trembled, and a murderous blade intent filled the entire restaurant. The crowd's hearts trembled, and they looked at Qiushan with fear. This was also a person who could not be provoked. Nie Tian and Mo Rushi followed Aoki Lily to a private room on the second floor. "Miss Lily, I'm sorry to have caused you trouble," Nie Tian said apologetically. Ning Wudao had died in the Origin restaurant, and the Diyuan Chamber of Commerce would also be implicated. Aoki Lily smiled faintly and regained her composure. She glanced at Mo Rushi with her charming eyes and thought to herself, "Why are the girls around Nie Tian so beautiful? This girl's appearance seems to be even more exquisite than Rui Qianyu." Even though Aoki Lily herself was a great beauty, compared to Mo Rushi, she still paled in comparison. This made her feel a little inferior. "Nie Tian City Lord, why are you here?" Aoki Lily asked after a moment of silence. "I'm looking for someone called Mo Tai. Have you heard of him, Miss Lily?" Nie Tian did not hide anything and said directly. Chapter 566. You're also looking for him? Nie Tian was stunned for a moment before he asked, "You came to Anning City to look for Mo Tai?" Aoki Lily suddenly appeared in Anning City to look for Mo Tai. This made Nie Tian's heart sink. Did something really happen to Mo Tai? Nie Tian City Lord, take a look at this. Aoki Lily handed the name list to Nie Tian, unable to conceal her worry. Nie Tian took the name list. There were many names on it, and Mo Tai was one of them. "Miss Lily, what do these names mean?" Nie Tian asked with a frown. He didn't understand what the name list meant. Aoki Lily's expression softened. The people on the name list are guards hired by the DUN Chamber of Commerce. Half a month ago, this group of people escorted something from the desolate heaven ancient desert, but they mysteriously disappeared. Emotai is the captain of this group of guards. Disappeared. Rushi exclaimed when she heard Aoki Lily's words. Her pretty face immediately became nervous. The desolate heaven ancient desert was the boundless desert surrounding Anning City. It was rumored that the demon race lived at the end of the desert. Before Nyetian came, he didn't expect the environment of Anning City to be so bad. The Emo family sent Emotai to this place because they didn't want him to return to Sumi spiritual capital. Emotai definitely couldn't survive, so he formed a guard team and took some jobs from various chambers of commerce to barely survive. Aoki Lily glanced at Rushi and guessed that the latter had a special relationship with Emotai. Miss Lily, what are Emotai and the others escorting? Nyetian frowned and his expression became serious. He guessed that the things Emotai was escorting must be extraordinary. Otherwise, Aoki Lily wouldn't have come in person. The DUN Chamber of Commerce was one of the 7 top chambers of commerce in the Martial Assembly Chamber of Commerce. Its business covered the entire Nanshan region. If Emotai was escorting ordinary goods, Aoki Lily wouldn't have appeared here. It was not uncommon for merchant caravans to be robbed. The guards were trading their lives for a living. Even if they died, it was their bad luck. Aoki Yuri looked at Nyetian, and her beautiful eyes flickered. After thinking for a moment, she finally said, "It's a cargo being escorted by a mysterious organization. I'm not sure what it is exactly. However, the price they offered was very high, and they clearly stated that they didn't need an expert to escort them. That's why we hired an escort team from Anning City. Originally, the identity of this escort team was extremely secretive, but I didn't expect that something would happen. The price is very high, but you don't want an expert to escort you." Nyetian pondered for a moment and suddenly asked, "Where did this mysterious organization ask you to transport the goods from An to?" "Pick up the goods from Barren Sky City and transport them to Tranquil City," Aokiki Lily said, nodding. Barren Sky City? Nyetian was taken aback. He had never heard of this name before. Aokiki Lily explained, "The Barren Heaven City is a small, remote city in the center of the Barren Heaven Desert. It's called a small city, but it's actually just a town. Not only are there human warriors in the town, but there are also demons. Because the Barren Heaven City is even more remote and dangerous than Tranquil City, very few people know of its existence." "According to what you said, Emotai and the others went to Barren Sky City to pick up the goods, and then they disappeared mysteriously, right?" Nyetian frowned, feeling slightly uneasy. "Yes." Aokiki Lily nodded. Rushi's little face stiffened, and she was about to cry. She didn't have a mother since she was young. If something happened to her father, she really couldn't bear it. Nyetian reached out and hugged her. With a determined look, he said, "Don't worry, Lord Emotai will be fine." "Nyetian City Lord, this lady is—" Aokiki Lily saw that Nyetian and Rushi were so close, and she couldn't help but ask. "Her name is Rushi, my fiancé. Lord Emotai is her father," Nyetian said bluntly. "Oh." Aokiki Lily nodded. She unintentionally glanced at Nyetian, and there was an unconcealable disappointment in her eyes. She thought to herself, Nyetian City Lord is a dragon among men. Only a woman like Lady Rushi is worthy of him. Nyetian was worried about Emotai's safety. He asked, "Lady Lily, do you have any clues about the missing guards?" Aokiki Lily nodded and took out a compass. She said, "Every caravan of the Diwan Chamber of Commerce has a dark steel magnet. If something happens to the caravan, you can use the compass to find the Chamber of Commerce." "Okay." Nyetian nodded. He finally had some clues. He said, "There's no time to lose. Let's go find them now." Aokiki Lily stopped Nyetian and said, "Nyetian City Lord, wait a moment. We're still waiting for someone." "Waiting for someone?" Nie Tian was slightly stunned. Was there someone else besides Aokiki Lily coming to the Diyuan Chamber of Commerce? Nie Tian City Lord, to tell you the truth, Yi Fun is among the caravan that got into trouble this time, Aokiki Lily said with a pained expression. Young Master Ding is here too. Nie Tian was quite surprised. It seemed that his previous guess was too simple. The mysterious employer of the Diyuan Chamber of Commerce must be escorting a batch of unusual goods. Otherwise, Ding Yifun would not have followed them personally. No wonder Aokiki Lily had personally come to such a remote place like Peaceful City. Ding Yifun had gotten into trouble as well. Young mistress. At this moment, the door to the room opened and a figure walked in. Guild Master Lu. Aokiki Lily looked at the newcomer with a much calmer expression. The newcomer was an old man in green. Nie Tian recognized him. He was the vice guild master of the Diyuan Chamber of Commerce, Lu Liangkai, who had appeared at the Dragon Blood martial meet. He did not expect that even the vice guild master of the Diyuan Chamber of Commerce would be alerted. It must be something extraordinary. Nie Tian City Lord. Seeing Nie Tian again, Lu Liangkai was very surprised. At this time, the shocking deeds that Nie Tian had done in Sumi spiritual capital had not spread. Therefore, Lu Liangkai and Aokiki Lily did not know that Nie Tian was already a red-cloved elder of the Alchemists' Guild. Previously, it was rumored that Nie Tian had died in the chaotic abyss. Now that he had suddenly appeared, Lu Liangkai was naturally surprised. Guild Master Lu. Nie Tian only nodded lightly as a greeting. Guild Master Lu, Nie Tian City Lord is also looking for Mo Tai and the others. We have a helper this time, Aokiki Lily said. She did not know why, but with Nie Tian around she felt inexplicably at ease. This young man was like a stabilizing force. No matter what the storm was, as long as he was by her side, it could be calmed. Lu Liangkai sensed Nie Tian's strength. His eyes widened and he could not react for a long time. In just half a year's time, Nie Tian's strength had actually reached level 3 of True Element. It was really unbelievable. Lu Liangkai took another look at Mo Rushi and was shocked by the latter's celestial beauty. However, he was a spirit wheel realm warrior after all. His mental fortitude was incomparable to ordinary people. He immediately calmed down and sensed Mo Rushi's strength again. He was also very surprised. Mo Rushi looked to be 16 or 17 years old, which was a few years younger than Aokiki Lily. To think that she was also at level 1 of True Element. How terrifying! Let's go. Nie Tian was unwilling to wait any longer and nodded. Chapter 567. Nie Tian, Lu Liangkai, and the others immediately went downstairs and prepared to go to the Desolate Heaven City in the Desolate Heaven Desert. Mr. Seeing Nie Tian coming down, Chiu Shan greeted him respectfully. Let them go, Nie Tian said faintly and signaled everyone to leave. The crowd was in an uproar and quickly left, unwilling to see Nie Tian and the others again. Nie Tian and the others did not delay and directly left the restaurant. When they were about to leave the peaceful city, an overwhelming murderous aura came from the front. Nie Tian looked ahead and frowned slightly. Dozens of warriors in black appeared in the air in front of them. Each of them had a surging aura and strong murderous intent, releasing a violent murderous aura. Transformation God Sect. Lu Liangkai was stunned. He still did not know that Nie Tian had just killed the number 1 disciple of Transformation God Sect, Ning Wudao. Let's go. Nie Tian did not care about the people blocking his way and continued to walk forward. He wholeheartedly wanted to save Mo Tai, and his heart was filled with anxiety. At this moment, he really wanted to kill anyone who stood in his way. Dozens of warriors in black descended from the sky. Each of them was at least LV5 of True Element Realm. Their combined aura was not inferior to that of a Spirit Wheel Realm warrior. Did you kill Lord Ning? The leader was a warrior at LV7 of True Element Realm. His eyes were full of mockery. He could not guess how Nietian, who was only at LV3 of True Element Realm, could kill Ning Wudao, who was at LV9 of True Element Realm. Get lost! Nietian's eyes focused and spat out a word. Without any hesitation, the heaven/sword appeared in his hand, and he directly thrust it out. Boom! A whistling sound was heard in the air. The sword's brilliance suddenly bloomed and a huge sword shadow pressed forward. The extremely strong murderous intent made everyone's heart tremble. The person who spoke did not expect Nietian to be so tyrannical that he actually attacked directly. He wanted to resist, but it was too late. In the end, he did not even have the chance to scream and was directly cut into two. The smell of blood in the yellow sand became even stronger. Lu Liangcai's pupils constricted abruptly as he was shocked by Nietian's shocking combat strength. He could also kill a true element 7th layer martial artist with a single sword strike, and it would be even easier than Nietian. However, he was a spirit wheel practitioner while Nietian was only at true element level 3. The might of Nietian's sword shocked the other black-clad cultivators. Their gazes trembled, and some of them even retreated in fright. Stinking brat, do you know that we're from the White Tiger Hall of the Deity Transformation Sect? Even if you have 100 heads, you still won't be able to die from offending the Deity Transformation Sect. Even in this kind of situation, there were still some idiots who were not afraid of death who walked up and hooted. Nietian didn't even look at that person and stabbed out with his sword again. The sword intent was cold and decisive. The sword light fell and blood splattered everywhere. The person who spoke died on the spot. Is there anyone else who wants to speak? Nie Tianling asked coldly, his tone so domineering that it made people's hair stand on end. He was in a rush to save people and had no time to waste with a bunch of idiot. The dozens of black-clad cultivators felt a chill in their hearts when his cold gaze swept past them. They all trembled in fear and didn't dare to say a word. Let's go, Nie Tianling said coldly and calmly passed through the other party's encirclement. The dozens of black-clad cultivators were like stones, not moving at all. Only when Nie Tian and the others completely disappeared in the yellow sand did they dare to let out a long sigh. Quickly report to the hall master, someone shouted. The dozens of cultivators took the two corpses away and disappeared in the blink of an eye. In the desolate ancient desert, at the border of the 3,000 small worlds, there was a sandstorm as far as the eye could see, and dust filled the sky. This was a desert that spanned thousands of miles, and there was no sign of human habitation within 1,000 miles. Several figures walked in the desert, heading towards an unknown place. Aokiki Lily held the heavens will compass in her hand and followed the direction indicated by the compass, moving against the sandstorm. The sandstorm here was too thick. Walking in it felt like one's entire body was enveloped in sand, making breathing difficult. The group walked in the sandstorm for an unknown period of time. Suddenly, a dilapidated wall appeared in front of them. It's here! Aokiki Lily exclaimed excitedly. The compass in her hand spun rapidly. This meant that the Chamber of Commerce had met with mishap here. There's the smell of blood in the sandstorm. Nie Tian's perception was extraordinary. He actually smelled blood in the air, which made his heart sink. At this moment, Aokiki Lily also sensed something. She pointed to her feet and said, "The profound iron magnet is under the sandstorm. It must have been buried by the sandstorm." Lu Liangcai nodded and did not say anything. He punched the ground, creating a sandstorm several meters deep. The group looked at the sandstorm and saw a damaged carriage. "It's the carriage of the Chamber of Commerce," Aokiki Lily exclaimed. Of course, she could recognize the Great Yuan Chamber of Commerce's carriage in the sandstorm. It seemed like the Chamber of Commerce had met with mishap here. When Emo Rushi saw this scene, her pretty face turned as white as a sheet. She was very worried that something must have happened to her father. Nie Tian hugged her in his arms and frowned. He also had a bad feeling in his heart. Lu Liangkai made a grabbing motion in the void and lifted the carriage up. The instant the carriage emerged from the ground, the bloody scene made Nie Tian's eyes narrow slightly. There were several corpses hanging on the carriage. Although they were wrapped in sand, he could still see that the corpses were riddled with holes, as if they had been bitten by something. The smell of blood just now had come from these corpses. Father! Emo Rushi could no longer control herself and burst into tears. Nie Tian's face darkened slightly, and he hugged Emo Rushi even tighter. At the same time, he used his divine senses to check. There were a total of 3 corpses on the carriage and over a dozen corpses under the sandstorm. Lu Liangkai and Qiu Shan checked the waste tokens on the corpses one by one. They did not find Mo Tai or Ding Yifan. This made the few of them feel a little relieved. Not finding the corpses meant that they might still be alive. Could they have been attacked by something here? Aoki Eureka calmed down and guessed as she looked at the carriage. That should be the case. Lu Liangkai nodded and said, "The wounds on these corpses are not caused by essence force attacks. They must have encountered some kind of ferocious spirit beast." Nie Tian's gaze was on the carriage at this moment. He suddenly asked, "What is inside the carriage?" "Nie Tian City Lord, did you discover something?" Aoki Eureka saw Nie Tian's strange expression and couldn't help but ask. Bang! Nie Tian didn't say anything. His body shook slightly, and a sword shadow struck the carriage. Instantly, a huge box appeared. What smell is that? The moment the box appeared, everyone felt a pungent smell of blood and frowned. The box was restrained by some kind of seal, and the power of the seal was damaged. Hence, a pungent smell spread out. "This is what the mysterious employer asked you to escort?" Nie Tian's expression suddenly turned cold. He took a few steps forward and walked to the side of the box. Nie Tian didn't wait for Aoki Eureka's reply. He directly smashed the box with his palm.